Yes, people, this is your girl Aleisha Lee and welcome back to another episode of Aleisha Lee Reviews. In this episode, we will be reviewing The Boys Season 4, Episode 1, Department of Dirty Tricks. Let's get into this.
Hit that subscribe button.
We kick this episode right off with Victoria Newman getting ready to greet a crowd. Singer and Victoria Newman, they are running for the presidency with Singer at the forefront and Victoria Newman as the VP. But Singer, he's got other plans. This is where we see the boys, they are getting ready to put that plan in action. We see that Kamiko is dressed as one of the waiters and she brings out some food to the guys, especially MM. We see Huey and Annie are on site trying to get the electrics going so that things are up and running, and that is where MM asks where is Butcher, but we see that Butcher, he is not doing too well. Remember, this man is compound V'd up, he's temp V'd up. There's a lot going on for Butcher and it really is not looking good for him at the moment. We see Butcher speak to no one saying don't start, and that is where Kamiko and Frenchie come out and ask him who is he talking to. They try to give him the uniform, but we know Butcher, he ain't wearing that. The guys go in, getting ready to execute the plan, but that is where they stop Butcher at the lift and let him know that he's not going to be coming up. Mother's Milk is now in charge of the boys. After everything that happened in the last season, the boys, they're not feeling Butcher. Now we see Homelander. He's having a wee. Why are we here with Homelander whilst he's having a wee? We are here because we see that Homelander has noticed some grey hairs. Yes, Homelander is getting old, and this is something that he is clearly not happy with. It's something that we can see he's having difficulty coming to terms with, especially where he knows about other suits that have the ability to remain young, i.e. Stormfront, i.e. Soldier Boy, and for him, he does not have that ability. So it's something where he's realizing maybe he's not as godlike as he thinks he is. And this music that they play when Homelander comes on, no, you gotta laugh. Like, it sounds so triumphant at first and then it just all goes downhill. Homelander tries to give Ryan some words of encouragement. Ryan, he is not really good being in crowded spaces, and we saw that in previous seasons. Homelander is trying to give him that confidence, and he lets Ryan know that, you know, humans, they're just toys for their amusement. Excuse me, Homelander, about Ryan, we can see that he is really taking this on board because he does go with Homelander inside, and that is where Homelander and Victoria Newman lock eyes. Now, Victoria, you know she is not pleased that Homelander is there. It does not look good for the optics. The boys can see on the surveillance that Homelander is in the building. MM warns everyone, do not engage with Homelander. Now, clearly, they did not anticipate this. This was not a part of the plan. Homelander and Victoria, they need to have a chat. So they tell Zoe and Ryan to head off, get some ice cream, and that is where they discuss the optics of Homelander actually being there whilst he is on trial for murder. He killed someone for throwing an object at Ryan, and this is where Victoria is trying to let him know him being there isn't a good look. But Homelander, he makes his presence very clear with the crowd and with Victoria. As Zoe and Ryan are on their way to look for ice cream, Butcher spots Ryan. Now, this is his opportunity to try and speak to Ryan. Butcher pleads with Ryan to come with him and lets him know that this is something that his mum would have wanted. But just as he is speaking to Ryan, that is when Homelander comes in to shut it down. Homelander can even tell that Butcher has only 6 months to live. Homelander tells him, come on son, and Ryan, he goes with his dad. Now we see Kamiko and Frenchie along with the agents are in Victoria Newman's suite. They are getting ready to execute their plan where they are swapping eye drops, but just as they are about to exit, that is where Zoe, Victoria's daughter, comes in, and she can clearly see that something is dodgy, and out of nowhere this girl is a soup. I don't know what was flying out of her mouth, snakes and things, but those things were lethal. Yes, Victoria has given her the compound V. Oh gosh, this little girl annihilates the security detail like with ease, yeah? Frenchie's there, it's okay, it's okay. No, Frenchie, it is not okay. This girl, she's on crud. Kamiko jumps in and gets in the middle so that this girl does not attack Frenchie, and that is when we see that this girl demolishes Kamiko's arm. When I say there was no arm, yeah, the arm was, in fact, the arm was still in the girl's mouth, because as Kamiko and Frenchie managed to get away, that is where we see the girl just dash where Kamiko's arm like it was bone. I could not believe this. Next minute, we see that the guys, they need an exit. They need to get out of there ASAP. That is where Starlight and MM get on board. Starlight lets them know that they need to jump out of that window. Kamiko jumps out that window with no hesitation. Now, obviously, Frenchie, he don't have no superpowers, but that is where Starlight is going to be there to catch them. Now, as Starlight is flying, she's just reaching out her hand to catch Kamiko. That is where we see Kamiko got baby arm. We see one little baby hand that she can't reach Annie. That is where we see Frenchie manages to drop onto Annie, and she manages to save Frenchie, but we see Kamiko smash to the ground. We know Kamiko will be okay, but oof, that's gotta hurt. Kamiko's face was off. The way the guys was like, oof, ish. We could literally see her face facing towards us, and she weren't facing us, yeah, but we could see her face. Back at the van, we see Huey. He's getting ready to pack up, and that is where we see Victoria opens the van. Now, Huey, he's caught by surprise. Obviously, she's not meant to know that they are there, but Zoe let her mum know what time it was when she saw Butcher. So this is how Victoria knows that there was a plan going on. Huey and Victoria have a moment because they're trying to figure out how did it get so bad between them. There was a time that they actually looked at each other as friends, and just as Victoria is speaking, that is where Huey tries to throw this acid on her, and it does nothing. It does nothing. All it does is ruin her outfit. She gets a bit wet. That is where Butcher then tries to shoot Victoria, but that doesn't do anything either, just showing how powerful she is. She even mentions that the boys, how you getting worse at doing your job? They're not even doing things properly. MM and Butcher are now at the CIA. They have a meeting with Grace Mallory and Singer. They are disappointed with both of them. Grace, she doesn't even let Butcher in the meeting because she's just done with him. He tries to plead with her and says that he will get the boy back, but she is not interested. She then goes in the room to grill MM and Singer. He lets it be known that now Victoria is going to know that he was the one behind the hit. Whilst waiting for MM, we see that Butcher sees an old friend. His name is Joe Kessler, and they begin to have a chat. They are sitting down reminiscing on good times. They also go on to speak about Butcher's battle and who is he really trying to get, and we all know it is Homelander. Marvin gets a visit from his ex-wife Monique. She is letting him know that their daughter Janine is not doing very well. She's punching boys and he is in shock. He can't believe it, but she explains to him that ever since she kicked Todd out, things haven't been the same. Janine really did like Todd and they don't know where he is. So Monique is asking Marvin to have a look for Todd and find him. Now we see that Homelander, he seems to be having a nightmare and he's having flashbacks of everything that he's previously been through and the pain that he's also inflicted on others. Now this wakes him up, and then we go to a shot where we can see that he is completely zoned out. He's in his own world, and I think he's just overwhelmed with everything that is going on and everything that he's trying to do. Now we are at the Vault Tower and the team are meeting up to discuss who they are going to be looking for to replace members that are no longer a part of the Seven. They are going through the soups and they come across Sister Sage. This is where A-Train makes it be known that she is not a good fit, and he knew her from when they were in a group previously. This is where Homelander perks up because they find out that her power is being the smartest person in the world. Homelander, he is fed up of his squad because all of them are so frightened of him, they can't give him honest feedback. To prove his point, Homelander tells the Deep to give A-Train, you know, even A-Train turn around like, huh? Are you alright? And the Deep proper gets up. Like, these guys, they're so frightened, they would rather do something against their will then to stand up to Homelander, and that proves his point exactly. Homelander ends up leaving. Now we're back with the boys and we can see that Butcher, he is still coughing. He is clearly not well. Annie, she is trying to fly and she is testing out her skills. Huey is there to support and tell her that she has beat her record. Annie says to Huey that they need to get rid of Butcher because Butcher, he's just not been on the same wave as them, but Huey insists that they can't get rid of Butcher. I think everyone else, they're ready to just get rid of him because he hasn't been the nicest. Now Butcher plans a secret meeting with Victoria. He is trying to get Ryan away from Homelander. Victoria is surprised because Butcher and the boys, they just tried to get rid of her. So him now coming to her to try and make a deal, she is going to be suspicious. Butcher lets Victoria know that she's going to actually need him. If she gets in power, Homelander is going to use her as his puppet. She's not going to have much power there. On top of that, the boys and the CIA will also be after her. Plus, he also knows about the virus at Godolkin, and he even mentions that it isn't strong enough to get rid of Homelander yet. To consider this proposition, Victoria wants a show of good faith from Butcher, and that would be to get rid of her files from Red River, which we know Huey has. Huey gets a call from the hospital letting him know that his dad is there. Now we saw that his dad did try to call him earlier, but he ignored that call, and now we see him rushing to the hospital where unfortunately his dad is not in a good way. Now we're with Annie and her crew and they're trying to encourage her to think about potentially coming back out as Starlight, and she's trying to explain to them that she's no longer Starlight, she's Annie January. But this is where they say that Annie isn't getting the donations, whereas Starlight would, because she's already got that fan base. Frenchie actually recommended Colin to work with Annie, and we can also see that there is something going on between Frenchie and Colin. Kimiko picks up on this as well. Back with Homelander, we can see that he is getting ready and he has found a grey hair in that area. We can see that he's got some artifacts that he's saving up, including his grey hair in a jar. He then looks at options for the new soups and he pauses on Sister Sage, and that is where we see he pays her a visit. Sister Sage is surprised to see Homelander at her door, and even more surprised to see that he is not in his famous suit. She even mentions it and says that she's never seen him without his suit before, but he is going to visit Sister Sage incognito because he needs help. Homelander asks Sister Sage to show him how smart she is, and at first she's a bit confused, but that girl, she gives him a read of a lifetime, and he was not prepared because she even goes down to letting him know about his concerns about aging. She's reading him. Homelander goes on to ask Sage for her advice on how she would level things up, and she goes on to explain how she would do it. Homelander invites Sage to join the Seven, and he reassures her that he will listen to her and what she's got to say. Gives her the opportunity to put her theories into practice. Back at the base with the boys, we see that Huey is back and he lets Butcher know that his dad has had a stroke. Now, he did mention that right before it happened that his dad did try to call him and he didn't pick up. Butcher tries to reassure him not to beat himself up about it. Now we see that Frenchie and Kimiko, they are on the hunt for Tom. That's when Frenchie gets a message from Colin, and Kimiko, she does question Frenchie and says that they have been spending a lot of time together. Frenchie does admit that it is complicated. Kimiko tells Frenchie that she does love him, but they're never gonna happen. Frenchie, he acknowledges that, but we know that there is always going to be something between these two. That is where they see that Todd is meeting up with two other guys, and we see Sage. So what is going on here? Why would Todd be meeting up with Sage and these other guys? he is taking pictures of this meetup. Once inside, we see that Black Noir, the Deep, and A-Train are all there, and that is where Homelander comes in and meets his fans. Now, obviously, they are so happy to meet him, but they do not understand that this is all a ploy. Homelander tries to say that they're martyrs and thanks them for their sacrifice. Next minute, we see that bats are being handed out by the Deep. Homelander asks the Deep, Black Noir, and A-Train to get rid of them. At one point, the Deep even asks if this is a test, and Homelander lets him know no, he wants them to do this. As the fans try to leave, we see Black Noir gives one of them a hit. Poor Todd tries to escape, and A-Train, he's not feeling doing anything violent, but this is where Black Noir comes in. Sister Sage, she's so proud of herself. She tells the guys to wait for further instructions. These people are going there thinking that they're going to meet their superhero, but no, they are meeting their fate. And this is where we see Homelander comes out and the guys spot him there. Frenchie even makes a comment, shouldn't he be on trial? Homelander makes his way to court, and that is where we can see there's clearly a divide between Starlighters and Homelander's crew. The verdict is coming in, and that is where we find out that Homelander is found not guilty. Obviously, all of the fans of Homelander are very pleased and the Starlighters are disappointed. Now, one of those Starlighters happens to be Sage, and this is where she starts pandemonium once again by throwing her drink at the opposition, the Homelanders. And this is where things just start to get completely hectic. Everyone is fighting. This is all been orchestrated by Sage. Next minute, we see the boys, Frenchie, Kimiko, and MM pull up to the court to see everything that's going on. Whilst at the hospital, Annie can see everything that is going on too, and Huey reassures her that it is fine to go. She has to get down there ASAP. The boys start putting in work against some of these rioters, trying to help people. And this is where we see that Colin is getting attacked. Frenchie gets over there to try and help him and make sure he is okay. And this is when we see that they kiss. Back with A-Train, Noir, and the Deep, they are going to begin the cleanup. Back with the Homelander crew and the Starlighters, it is completely going off. Homelander tries his least to ask everyone to remain calm. Really, this is exactly what he wants, and he is absolutely loving it. We see that Starlight has arrived and she pleads with everyone to stop. We also see one of her employees get attacked. Things are not looking good at all. This is where we see that A-Train dropped these bodies off. What they are trying to do is frame Starlighters, because clearly these were Homelander fans, so it's going to look like Starlighters done this. We then see that this is now on the news, and MM just speaks to Monique to let her know that they will speak to their daughter tomorrow about what has happened to Todd. Now we're with Homelander and Ryan. They are trying to celebrate with a glass of milk, and this is where Ryan, he is letting his dad know his concerns. He lets his dad know that he does not want Butcher to die. And you can see that Homelander is so frustrated, but he is trying his best to remain calm. And this is where he even questions Ryan and says, even though he abandoned you, he said awful things about you. This is where Ryan lets Homelander know that his mum loved Butcher. Clearly, Homelander is mortified. You just see Homelander take a sip of that milk, because if he says anything more, he's going to laser up the place. Now we're with the Deep and his octopus babe, and this is where she is trying to tell him that they should just get away and enjoy life together. And you know, the Deep, he really wants this, but he's not able to give the life that she is asking for. She doesn't want to hide anymore. It would just be Kevin and Ambrosius. Ambrosius is really trying to let the Deep know that they can run away together. They don't have to stay there, but he's in turmoil because he knows that he's got responsibilities here, and their relationship, he knows it won't work. Now we're with Colin and Frenchie, and after everything that's happened, we can see that they are now together. We then see that Frenchie looks at a picture of Colin's family and then puts it down. Back at the hospital, we see that Huey, he is just feeling it. I know that he's feeling a lot of guilt from not answering the call earlier. and now his dad is in this position. It is going to be really difficult for him. This is when we see another visitor pop up, and that is where Huey turns around and says, "Mum." Back at the boys' headquarters, we see that Butcher is speaking to Becca. He is sounding defeated, and she is trying to remind him that he made a promise to her that he was going to look after Ryan. She even says that if Ryan becomes Homelander, it is going to be worse for the world. And Butcher says to her, "Don't you think I know that?" She tries to ask him to try and keep on going, be the man that she married. Now, we know that this is a figure of his imagination because Becca has passed. Butcher is looking at Victoria Newman's Red River files. He then sends a message to her and says that he's got the files, but when he sends the picture, that picture is definitely not the files. That's one thing, it's not the files. And he even turns around to speak to Becca and says, "Are you happy now?" i.e. he is not going to sell the guys out. Why? Because Becca has come to him and said he needs to find a different way to do so. This is where we get a close-up shot of Butcher's head, and we can see that the veins are veining, and that is where the episode ends. Well, there is something definitely going on with Butcher, and we need to figure out what it is, because he's had so much going on. He's had the compound V, he's had the temp V. That's a lot going on. Sister Sage, she has just come in and is already causing chaos. Homelander can't take orders very well. So is he going to really be able to take orders from Sage? Let's see how long this lasts. The boys, what is going on? Huey has got a lot going on with his dad, and now he's feeling the guilt of not answering that phone call. It's going to get to him. How are things going to transpire now that his mum is back on the scene? Back to Frenchie, him and Colin and Kamiko. This is going to be a love triangle that is going to be tricky for all of them, because Kamiko, as much as she is saying that things are never going to happen between them, we know how deeply she feels for him and Frenchie as well. But Colin coming into the mix now, is that going to separate them even more? Let's wait and see. Annie, she is really not feeling this Starlight movement. She wants to be known as Annie January, but is that going to be the best thing for her, or does she need to embrace Starlight again? Let's see, guys. He's got a lot going on as well, and now to find out that Todd has been killed is already having an impact on his daughter. So imagine now that Todd is gone, how much more of an impact that is going to have. Victoria, she is kind of a rock in a hard place right now, because she knows she is trapped if she gets the presidency, and Homelander is just going to keep her as the puppet. But you see right at the end there, Butcher, it's a no deal. I'm going to give this episode 7 boys out of 10. I thought this was a good introduction to the new season, and there was a lot going on, but there wasn't a lot going on. It's really just setting up the storylines for what we're going to see in the following episodes. Let me know how many boys out of 10 you would give this episode. Leave your comments down below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share it with your people, let them know what we've got going on over here. But yes, people, I will catch you in the next The Boys review. Don't know. Boy. Yes, people, this is your girl Aleisha Lee, and welcome back to another episode of Aleisha Lee Reviews. In this episode, we will be reviewing The Boys, Season 4, Episode 2, Life Among the Septics. Let's get into this.
Hit that subscribe button.
We kick this episode off with a scene from A-Train's new movie. He is playing a character that has turned to the streets to deal instead of fulfilling his sporting career. And this is where we see that his coach is trying to encourage him to come back to the suburbs. I was like, excuse me, you can even see on A-Train's face, like, this is not for him. The director, he is letting Will Ferrell know that he is smashing it. He's going to get an Oscar nomination for this. Whereas A-Train, he's senses that he's not really feeling it, and A-Train lets him know that this film is not giving what it's meant to give. This coach, he's gonna save him from the ghetto, like this typical storyline. And he explains about his brother. His brother was just a normal guy that coached him. I think for A-Train, he wants to do something that is more in tune with what really happened, his real life story, instead of being this kind of stereotypical character being saved when that is not the case. And the director is just there gassing him, but we can see that they are pushing a narrative. A-Train can see it as well, and this is just another thing that he is tired of. We now see Black Noir. He can speak. Well, this is a new Black Noir. He has obviously replaced the original Black Noir, and he is asking A-Train for some direction, and A-Train lets him know, listen, just shut your mouth, be the maniac that Black Noir was, and that's about it. That's your duty. Now we are with Annie. She is at the hospital after the events that happened in the last episode. One of her employees was severely injured, so she's there to visit her and make sure she's okay. And that is where we see on the news that 2 men have been accused of the murders of Homelander's supporters. We know that these people are innocent. They are being accused of something that Homelander, Sage, and the rest of the squad did. Now we are at the hospital with Huey, his mum, and his dad, who is still not in a good way. This is where Huey and his mum, they get into it because Huey doesn't understand why his mum is there. Huey also learns that his mum actually works for Vault, and he explains to her that he's been trying to fight them. Huey questions his mum. He hasn't seen her since he was a child, and she has to explain that she is actually the power of attorney for his dad. He says, yeah, well, he's not updated his records, and she lets him know that he has. His dad made a decision that his mum would be in charge of that, and this is obviously a shock to Huey. Now we see Frenchie and Colin. Frenchie is trying to leave without waking Colin, but Colin is clearly awake. You can see that Frenchie is feeling guilty knowing what he has done to Colin's family, and he gets out of there to go to work. Now we see Kamiko. She is with her therapist, and her therapist is asking her about her speech therapy. She lets her know that it hasn't been working for her. Her therapist tries to get her to think about why this may happen. Now, it could happen because of trauma that had happened in the past, and this is where she asks her about her parents, and Kamiko ends up breaking the chair and leaving the session. Now we are back with the boys, and this is where we can see that Butcher has just let the squad know that he has not got long to live. Now clearly they are shocked. They want to know what's going on, and Annie lets him know that she warned him about taking the Compound V, the Temp V, and Butcher, he's not very nice. He says to Annie, you're not one of us, so basically shut up. And this is where MM asks Butcher to have a word privately. MM tells Butcher to leave. Butcher is in shock. He's like, listen, I've just spilled my heart out to you guys, and this is how you're gonna repay me. What is this? MM lets him know that Butcher, he's been lying to them for months, and they're not gonna have it anymore. He wants him to get his things and leave. Huey tries to intervene, but MM lets him know, don't say a word, and if you don't like it, you can leave with him. We are at the Vault Tower, and we can see that there is a pitch going on. The guys are going into detail about his storyline. You can see from Ryan's face, he is not impressed. This is where they then reveal a picture of Ryan in a suit, and he is called Homeboy. Are you alright? Obviously Homelander is loving it, but you can see from Ryan's face, he is absolutely mortified. Like, what is this? Really trying to make him be some mini-me Homelander. Ryan does say to his dad, yeah, it's cool, but Sage, she lets it be known that the whole pitch blows, and she goes into detail as to why. She says that Ryan needs to stand alone, he needs to have his own name, and you can see that this is not what Homelander wants to hear. But Sage reminds him why he brought her in here, and if he wants a kingdom for his son, then he's gonna have to listen to her. You can see on Homelander's face, he is not really pleased, but he's gonna let it slide. Throughout, you can just see Ashley's face. She is not feeling it, because she would never dare to speak to Homelander the way Sage just done. We then see Ashley stop the lift so she can get in and have a word with Sage, and this is where she says to her, yeah, I know that you're the smartest woman in the world, and Sage corrects her, smartest person Yeah, get it correct. But you can see that Sage, she can't stand Ashley. Sage lets her know, listen, yeah, you better find something else to do and become more useful around here, because soon you won't have a purpose. You better do something and get some milk going and flowing. You know that Homelander loves the milk, before you end up like Madeline. Oh, Sage, that's wicked, that's cruel. And we know what happened to Madeline Stillwell, yeah? Homelander got rid of her, and she was meant to be someone that was really important. She was providing him milk, and you see how he done her. That is when we see that the Deep gets in the lift and he starts speaking to Ashley. Ashley, no respect, none at all. And this is where Sage lets the Deep know that you cannot let her speak to you like that. You can see that Sage does not like the humans, and she tells the Deep, you need to, let her know who you are. You have the power. She don't. She's just a mere human. And the Deep, that things are ticking in his head, because he has been taking it from Ashley for a while. Let's see if Sage's words inspire him to do something different when it comes to Ashley. Now we're back with the boys, and is going through the evidence they have in regards to the people that were murdered. This is where we can see that they are starting to figure things out. They're looking at the timings of things, and Annie lets it be known it could have only been A Train that would have got them there that quickly. They also go on to discuss how they died, and they say that superpowers weren't used, and this is where mentions that they're getting smarter. Instead of using superpowers, they made it look like it could have been one of the Starlighters. This is likely down to Sage, who they know as being the smartest person in the world. So her being involved with the team is going to bring a different approach to certain things that they would have done previously. Has tapped Sage's phone and can see that she has made a reservation. He gets the guys to come down with him, and this is where we can see that Annie is going to stay back, and so is Huey. So Frenchie and Kimiko will be going along with for the ride. Now we see that rehearsals are taking place for Ryan's first save. We can see that Black Noir, the Deep, everyone is on set, and this is where the stunt guy is letting everybody know what needs to happen. Noir is doing too much. The Deep, he needs to tone it down as well, and he's trying to encourage Ryan as well, and he lets Ryan know on the day when it comes to it that, go for it, give him a real push, and he will be able to handle it. After a brief conversation with Homelander, the Deep now speaks to Ashley and lets her know that she can never speak to him like that again. And I think Ashley definitely got the message, because she was backing up and she looked afraid of the Deep, and the Deep, he felt well proud of himself after using Sage's advice. Now we are with Frenchie and Kimiko and Butcher. Yes, he is at their operation, and approaches him and says, what are you doing here? And Butcher lets it be known, you're not my boss anymore, so I can basically be where I like. This is where we're going to see them have to work together. We see that they are at TruthCon. This is the place where they discuss all things conspiracy theories, things to do with the government, politics, a lot of things going on at TruthCon. We see that the operation is going to be taking place here. As the boys walk through, we can see that there's a lot going on. Kimiko spots something that reminds her of her past, and this is where she kind of just needs to have a moment. The guys, they carry on walking, and that is when they see Sage. They continue to follow Sage, where Frenchie points out, where's Kimiko? The boys sit down, and this is where we meet a new suit called Splinter. He has the ability to splinter himself, multiply himself, and we can see that there are many versions of him helping set up. We can see that there is going to be a presentation on Starlight, and we know it's not going to be anything good. This is where Splinter introduces Firecracker, and you can see that Splinter has got a thing for her, but she just doesn't care. As Firecracker is delivering her speech, this is where we see Splinter leaves the room, and sets Frenchie on task to follow him. Frenchie and Kimiko follow Splinter, and what they find him doing is the man, let's just say he's enjoying himself, and yeah, they're gonna leave him to do what he needs to do and to enjoy himself. He is doing it to a picture of Firecracker as well, which just confirms the love that he has for her, and Yeah, wow. What do you expect? It's the boys. Now we're with Huey and Annie as they are waiting for A-Train. Annie has a source that knows that A-Train is going to be at this location. She is waiting for him so she can approach him and speak to him about what has gone on. This is where they hear on the radio details of Starlighters allegedly being responsible for the deaths of Homelander supporters. Annie speaks to Huey about her feelings having to potentially go back to being Starlight, and for her it's not an option because it just brings back so many bad memories that she just doesn't want to relive. Just as they are speaking about that, that is when they see A-Train. A-Train is there with his nephew, spending time with them and letting them know some stories about some saves back in the day. But this is where they are interrupted by A-Train's brother, and he says to him, why don't you tell them the truth? Nathan is clearly upset that A-Train has been going behind his back to see his children. We know everything that's gone on between A-Train and his brother Nathan. Nathan breaks down to his sons that those saves, they weren't real. And we see an example of this at the beginning of the episode where they are manufacturing this save for Ryan. Nathan lets them know that he knows that it's not real because he was there. Remember, Nathan was once A-Train's coach. Nathan tells his boys that A-Train, their uncle, he was never a hero, and they leave. A-Train shouts out to Nathan he's sorry, but Nathan, he doesn't want to hear it. This is where Annie, she is about to make her way towards A-Train, but Huey tells her to leave it for a moment. We can see that A-Train, he's going through it. Back at TruthCon, we can see that Firecracker is speaking to some fans. Now we see Sage. She approaches Firecracker and we can tell that there's going to be some tension between these two because Sage clocks the undertone of racism Firecracker is trying to throw at her, and that's when she lets her know that she knows Homelander. Firecracker, she doesn't believe it until Sage shows her a selfie with herself and Homelander, and that is where Firecracker wants to hear more. Sage lets Firecracker know that Homelander would not be caught with these types of people, but there is a chance that she could meet him. Sage wants to know what power Firecracker has, and this is where she shows off her powers. Sage is not impressed. I don't know what that power was, just some click and a poof of smoke. Sage, she needs to get a bit more from Firecracker. Like, what more can you do? And she lets Sage know that she has influence. She has power over people. She can speak into people that are not doing so well, and she can encourage them to do whatever agenda she sets. We can see that Butcher and they are listening in to Sage and Firecracker's conversation. Sage invites Firecracker to a meeting, and this is where we see that tension starts to brew between Butcher and makes it clear that this is just a surveillance only mission, but Butcher, you know him, he wants to take things into his own hands, and this is where we see the two go at it outside. Before heading outside, Butcher was suggesting that they take Sage, asking if she's got any other powers, and let him know it was just her brain power, but this is where Butcher wanted to kidnap her and basically get more info, but he's letting him know that is not the way to do it. Butcher is letting it rip to questioning his leadership of the boys, and this is where just can't take it because Butcher mentions his wife. Gave him some blows. Butcher was on the floor. He explains to Butcher that he's always having to clean up his mess. Back inside, we can see that Kamiko is still drinking, and that is where she sees the poster yet again. She decides to write on it. This is where she gets into it with one of the guys standing there and ends up pushing them, saying that if they really cared about trafficking, they would stop. They would do something more about it. Frenchie, he manages to stop Kamiko and calm her down. Back at the office, we see Huey and Annie arrive, and that is where they are greeted by A-Train. A-Train hands them a USB which has evidence that proves that the two Starlighters could not have possibly committed these crimes as they were a mile away. Huey questions A-Train and asks why is he giving it to them. A-Train lets them know that they could have got in his face when he was with his family, but they didn't. And he makes it clear that he needs to thank just Huey for that because she would have been up in his face and he would have deserved it. He actually agrees with her and he is off. We're outside the vault bank, and this is where we see finally Ryan is about to do his save. We can see that our robber which we know is the stuntman. He is out there with the young girl he is trying to kidnap, and this is where Ryan flies in to save the day. And just as he is about to push the stuntman away, this is where we see Homelander. Everyone is shocked because this is not part of the script. Homelander just couldn't help himself. He could not let Ryan have the limelight. No, he needs to be there as well. And this is where he is telling Ryan, go, push him hard, throw him hard. Ryan ends up killing the stuntman, and you can see that Ryan is absolutely devastated. This was not a part of the script. People are filming this live and they can see everything that has just occurred. Back at TruthCon, Kamiko and Frenchie are going to a room next to the room that Sage gave Firecracker, and they are going to set up their surveillance, which is where they are caught by surprise because Sage has set this whole thing up. Come on, she is the smartest person in the world. And this is where we see Splinter and his Splinteries, Firecracker and Sage enter. Sage lets know that she's not impressed with him, and did you really think that she wouldn't know that he was tailing her? This is where we see that Sage, she lets Firecracker know that this is her audition, and Firecracker asks her, audition for what? Sage lets her know she'll find out, and all she has to do is get rid of the boys. This is where we see that Splinter and Firecracker start letting off, but the boys, they are ready for them and they start to tussle. and Frenchie are dealing with these splinters while Kamiko is dealing with Firecracker. This is where we see that the main Splinter starts to create more. and Frenchie run out into another room where there happens to be a massive celebration going on. Next minute, we see the Splinters enter the room, and yes, pandemonium starts. With Kamiko and Firecracker bursting through the walls, it is completely going off. All the party goers get out of there in fear of their lives, whilst the boys are about to battle the Splinter and Firecracker crew. Frenchie and are working their way through these splinters. That's where Splinter has to create more in order to overpower them. We see Kamiko and Firecracker, they are not giving up, but that is where one of the splinters comes in and shoots Kamiko. Firecracker decides to go on live saying that they are currently being attacked. As Firecracker is chatting away, next minute all we hear is Budup. Firecracker is on the floor. Yes, it is Butcher here for the boys. This is where we see that he just starts going mad on these splinters. The main Splinter, you can see that he cannot take it. This is where we see more splinters just get on top of Butcher, and Butcher screams out to to get the boys out of there, but no, they are not going to leave Butcher, and that is where everyone gets to work. Kamiko is back on her feet and they are working through these splinters. They work through each and every one of these splinters until they get to the main one. This is where one of the splinters shouts out, "No, not Prime," meaning that if the Prime Splinter is killed, they're all out. And just before they do drop out, they manage to get a message to Firecracker. That is where we see that the boys triumphant from that fight look at Firecracker, and Firecracker, she's not ready for this smoke, so she is out of there. Back at the Vault Tower, we can see that Homelander, he's bought some milkshakes for him and Ryan, he is really upset after what has happened. Now Homelander thinks that Ryan is upset because Homelander was there, but no, that is not the case. Homelander is so delulu that he really thought Ryan is upset because he didn't get to have a solo save. And he's even trying to console him. "Oh, you'll have many solo saves, don't worry about it. But I think me being there, it really helped. It's going to get your numbers up." And Ryan's like, "Are you all right? That's not why I'm upset." He's upset because he killed Koi. Homelander, he's in disbelief. He's like, "Is that what you're upset about?" Homelander ends up getting a bit upset with Ryan because he can't believe that he's upset about this, especially as he's already told Ryan that humans are just toys. Now we can see that the accused Starlighters have now been released thanks to that evidence from A-Train, who gave it to Annie and Huey. Now, Annie says to Huey that she is going to step up now and she can't let someone like A-Train step up, and she doesn't. I think now she's coming to the realization that she does have to embrace Starlight, and this is where her Starlight supporters roar. We're with Frenchie and he is in a bad way. That's when he gets a call from Colin, but he decides to ignore it. He is speaking to Cherie and she is in disbelief that he is in an intimate relationship with Colin now, especially knowing that he is the one that killed his family, and she just doesn't understand what Frenchie is doing, and neither does Frenchie, to be honest. Now we're at the hospital and Huey is letting his mum know how he feels. He is letting her know how he felt the day that she left. She promised them tickets to a Billy Joel concert, but it didn't happen. And he just lets her know. You can see at the end of it that she is clearly upset. Huey leaves the hospital. Back at the office, we can see that Kimiko is looking at an article of the Shining Light terror organization. They are in New York City. These are the people that forced her to fight back when she was younger, and now they are here. As Kimiko leaves, we see Butcher arrives, and this is where Butcher and MM get to have a chat. MM thanks Butcher for what he done back at TruthCon, saving them. Butcher, he asks MM for his help to save Ryan, but MM lets Butcher know that it is too little, too late. And that is where the episode ends. Wow, what an episode. This was a very interesting one because it's really setting things up for what we're going to see in the following episodes. Now, Firecracker being recruited, Splinter, we got to meet him and we got to see him go. I mean, what a character. He really loved Firecracker to the extent that he sacrificed his life for her. Poor Ryan now having to deal with the death of Koi on his conscience. How is he going to deal with that going forward? And the way that his dad is just not really accepting his feelings about it, how is that going to affect Ryan? Kimiko and Frenchie are dealing with a lot at the moment, and this tension between MM and Butcher. Right now, the boys, it's all a mess. Huey and Annie, they've got things going on. Huey with his dad and Starlight having to figure out if she's trying to progress as Annie or if she's going to be Starlight. There is just a lot going on with the boys right now. I am going to give this episode 7 boys out of 10. I thought this was a good episode, and now we're seeing Sage, how she really works, how smart she really is. I've had a feeling from the get-go that it was all a setup anyway for the boys, because it was just too clear and clean the way that everything just happened. But yes, people, that was episode 2 of The Boys. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Leave your comments down below and let me know how many boys out of 10 you would give this episode. Make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you are notified when the next review is up. I will catch you in the next The Boys review. Done now. Boy. Yes, people, this is your girl Aleisha Lee, and welcome back to another episode of Aleisha Lee Reviews. In this episode, we will be reviewing The Boys, Season 4, Episode 3, We'll Keep the Red Flag Flying Here. Let's get into this.
Hit that subscribe button.
We kick this episode off with the Vought rally. We see that there are many people out there to see Homelander and the squad, as well as some Starlight supporters who are definitely not feeling the vibes. We see that Homelander introduces A-Train, Black Noir, and the Deep. A-Train has to let Black Noir know to tone it down a bit because he's doing a bit too much, and that is where we see that there are new members of the Seven, and these are Firecracker and Sister Sage. Now, do you remember Sister Sage? She said she ain't wearing no suit, but look, she's in her suit. Homelander, he is speaking to the crowd, letting them know that people, they are trying to tear him down, but they are not going to let it happen. And he is introducing this new and improved Seven, saying that they are bigger and stronger, and there is room for one more member that possibly could be his son Ryan. He reminds the crowd about what we saw where he stopped those bank robbers when we know that was a planned save. Now we're with Butcher. He is speaking to his friend Joe Kessler about Ryan, and they have a plan where they want to get Ryan into a space where Supes won't be able to use their power. They'll be able to subdue him for a while in that space. But Joe Kessler makes the point, you know, what happens if you can't sway him? And that's got Butcher thinking. Just then they see that Ryan is on the TV with his dad at the rally. Whilst on stage, Homelander tells Ryan to smile right now. You can see that Ryan is still feeling the events of the last episode after what happened to Coy, who was the stuntman that Ryan accidentally killed. Now we see Homelander and Sage. They are having a conversation about Firecracker joining the Seven. Homelander, he can't really believe this selection, but Sage insists that he trusts her, and she even reminds him, thought this is what we were meant to do, you're meant to trust me on this. And she also mentions that she knows that Homelander is trying to punish her by putting her in the suit and in the limelight for speaking out in the last episode. Now, this is where Homelander insists that no, it's better to be in the limelight, but she's trying to explain that she is better behind the scenes, and instead of her being in the limelight as she's trying to stage a coup, which is what they are trying to do, it's better that she's in the background. But Homelander clearly disagrees. Now we are with Huey and Starlight. Huey is seeking legal advice. He advises Huey to work it out with his mum in regards to the power of attorney, as there isn't much from a legal standpoint that Huey can do. We see that Singer is having a meeting with his team, a meeting that Victoria Newman wasn't invited to, but she managed to make sure that she was present for. Now, this is where Singer suggests that they get back to a place where Supes are more entertainers. This is something that Victoria doesn't like the sound of, because we saw from her reaction and what she said in regards to making it fair for Supes, because we don't want them to feel a certain type of way either. But this is where Singer is insistent that it's for the best that the Supes go back to being that instead of having so much power. Obviously, Victoria is aware of what Singer tried to do, and Singer is aware that Victoria knows as well. Back with the boys, we see that Kimiko is talking to Frenchie about Shining Light. She says that the therapist was right. She has to face her past, and the best way to do that is by getting rid of all of Shining Light. And this is where Frenchie tries to tell her that is not the best way to go about it, but Kimiko is insistent. She asks Frenchie to come with her. Talks to Huey and Annie about potentially getting A-Train to become an informant for the boys. Now, they are not feeling this idea, but he says that he can sense when someone is going to flip, and especially where A-Train gave them the evidence they needed to free the Starlighters, this is a perfect opportunity to speak to A-Train and try and get information on what's going on with the Seven. Ryan is playing a Vought video game where he gets a request from Butcher. Now, this is where Butcher gets a chance to speak to Ryan and asks Ryan to see him. Ryan makes the point that his dad told him that he shouldn't be speaking to Butcher, but Butcher pleads with him and says that they need to speak and have a proper catch up. Now we're at the Vought Tower, and we can see that Homelander is watching Annie on the news, and Annie is now reclaiming Starlight, and she wants it to be known to her fans and supporters that they will be going against Homelander and the powers that be, because they have got too much power. It's power that they shouldn't have. Why? Because they are going to misuse and abuse it. Homelander, you can see on his face that he is absolutely livid, but this is where Firecracker comes in to let Homelander know that she is here to serve. She is willing to do anything for him. Now we see that there is a meeting with the Seven, and this is where Ashley is excused. Homelander tells Ashley that she can leave, but Ashley's like, you know, I'm usually at these meetings, but Homelander lets her know that Sage will be taking over her CEO duties from now on, and basically she's going to be a mascot. Now Ashley, she tries to play it off as best as she can. Sage kicks the meeting off by letting everyone know the news that the Starlighters that were accused of the murders of those Homelander supporters have now been freed. Now this is where everyone looks at the Deep, because he is in charge of the crime analytics department, which that evidence was taken from, and he is fired from the department. Now we know that it was A-Train that was the one responsible for that. During the meeting, we see that A-Train gets a message from his brother Nate asking him to talk. Back at home with the Deep, He is clearly upset about what happened in the meeting, and this is where we hear Ambrosius, yes, his octopus bay lover that he cannot let go of, but she is realizing that things have been different between them recently. He has not cleaned her tank, they haven't been intimate, and she's asking him, what's going on? You're working too hard, let's take a vacation. But we can see that things are clearly changing for the Deep in regards to his feelings and everything going on with him and Vought. This is where we can see that there are tensions brewing between the two. Ashley is having a moment to vent. Obviously, she is upset about what has just happened. This is where we see she is going to assist Cameron Coleman with his needs. Yes, the news reporter, Ashley and Cameron, they've got this kinky business thing going on. Now we see Butcher, he is chefing it up in the kitchen and he is making some cookies. There is that substance that we know is meant to subdue Ryan that he is putting in those cookies. We hear Ryan arrive. Remember, he can fly, so we just hear a whoop. And yes, Ryan is outside. Butcher does try to offer Ryan a cookie, but Ryan declines and says that he isn't hungry. Now, Ryan does have second thoughts about coming to visit Butcher, and just as he is about to leave, Butcher invites him to a game of foosball. Now we're with A-Train, and we can see that he is at the meeting point to meet his brother Nate, but just as he thinks that he is about to meet Nate, that is where we see it is MM. Obviously, A-Train is disappointed. MM lets him know that he did clone his brother's phone, and that is how he managed to lure him to this spot. A-Train, he is not impressed. He says to MM, listen, I could do with you on this turf right now, but this is where MM claps back and lets him know he has got so much dirt on A-Train that he can use to take him down, but that isn't what he wants to do. MM lets A-Train know that he is aware it was him that leaked that footage to Starlight as he saw him on the surveillance cameras at the office. He goes on to say to A-Train that he knows there is something in him that wants to make a change and not to let this second chance stop him from doing so. He knows that A-Train is going through something and he is sick of having to pretend to do all of these things that he doesn't really want to do. So MM encourages A-Train to think about this. Now we're with Kimiko and Frenchie, who have gone on a mission to get rid of all of the Shining Light crew. Now, Kimiko realizes that Frenchie might not be of much use to her as he is high. We saw him take that at the office just before they headed out, and it seems like now the effects are really kicking in. Kimiko is having to deal with all of these guys by herself whilst Frenchie goes off on a trip, and this is where he starts to hallucinate and he sees Colin. He can hear Colin basically saying to him, you don't care, you done all of these things and you did not stop doing it. And this is where Frenchie sees all of the people that he hurt over the past, including Colin's family. This is just a lot for Frenchie at the moment, and taking these hallucinogens just did not help. We see Kimiko is still fighting off these guys until one of these people happens to be one of the girls that she knew back in the day. They start going at it. They realize they do know each other, but they're still fighting. That is where Frenchie manages to snap out of his hallucination, and just as he is about to shoot, Kimiko tells him to stop and the girl runs away. Back with Ryan and Butcher, we can see that they are well into their foosball game. This is where Butcher speaks about his brother and where he learnt foosball, but he lets Ryan know that he is not going to let him win. Ryan actually wants it that way because he says at the tower everyone lets him win and it isn't much fun. They then go on to talk about his save. Butcher lets him know that he did see his save and he's a big hero now, but Ryan lets him know his true feelings about what really happened, and unfortunately he did throw the stunt guy too hard. Butcher says, yeah, you know, is he alright? And this is where he realizes that that person is no longer here. Ryan does share with Butcher that his dad does expect him to not care about it. Butcher and Ryan have a heart-to-heart moment as Ryan says to Butcher he understands why Butcher didn't want him. But Butcher lets him know that he did not mean any of those things he said, and he explains to Ryan in more detail that it's more about him. he doesn't feel like he is ready to have that kind of responsibility, and it isn't to do with Ryan. Butcher also goes on to share with Ryan that he is scared of dying and he feels that he's got nothing to show for it once he does leave this world. So he cannot go without making things right with the one part of Becca that is still alive, and that is Ryan. After their chat, Butcher decides to throw away those cookies. I think after having that heart-to-heart with Ryan, he doesn't want to go about doing things that way. He thinks that he may be able to get through to Ryan in a different way. Back at the Vault Tower, we can see that interrogation has started. Interviews have started to try and get to the bottom of the leak. We can see that Sage is asking Annika a few questions about her contact with Starlight recently, and before the girl even really gets to explain what's going on, Homelander gets rid of her, lasers her. Sage makes the point, you know, didn't you think that we could get some more info? And Homelander's like, yeah, guess I am petty. Like, come on, Homelander, how are we meant to move forward if every single person you're gonna do this to? Like, sir. We see that this happening to Annika leads to Ashley shredding her resignation letter. We saw that when she was with Cameron, she was speaking to him about resigning as well and heading over to Disney, but it looks like those plans are not gonna happen. Now we're with Starlight at the Vault Tower, where she is paying Firecracker a visit. Starlight is here to find out what exactly Firecracker's problem is with her and why she is so interested in bringing her down. This is where Firecracker reminds her of how Annie treated her back when they were younger. Firecracker lets Starlight know that by the time that she's done with her, the world is going to know that she is not as prim and perfect as she seems. Now we're at rehearsals for Vault on Ice. This is where we see that MM and Huey, they are undercover, pretending to be cleaning there, but really they are on a mission to find out what is happening and what is going to be said at a secret meeting with Homelander and Victoria Newman. Now Huey questions MM, how does he know this information? And he lets him know that he got it from A-Train. And yes, Huey is not pleased about it. After they discussed that getting A-Train involved wasn't a good idea, MM has gone ahead and got this information from him. This is where MM also has to put Huey in his place and let him know that he is the boss, and all he wants to hear is yes sir. That is when we see Huey is up in the vents trying to get a device up there so that they can hear exactly what that conversation is going to be like between Homelander and Victoria. We can see Sage is also present at this meeting, and Victoria questions why she is here, but Homelander lets her know that she is a valued member of the Seven. They go on to discuss Firecracker, who Sage believes can take down Starlight. MM tells Huey to get out of there, but obviously it is a bit of a sticky situation for Huey to get out of, especially as these people are in the middle of this talk. As they're going through the plans, Victoria, she doesn't understand how this is going to work, and this is where Homelander tries to make her see that she needs to stop being ashamed of who she is, i.e. being a soup, and once she does get into the White House, that she can show people who she really is. Now even Sage is looking at him like, no, this ain't a part of the plan, but you know Homelander, when he is set on something, he is set. He even mentions Victoria's daughter Zoe and tries to say what example is she setting for Zoe by not showing who she really is. This is where we see a drop of Huey's sweat lands on Homelander's shoulder, and you know that man can smell, sense, everything. Without hesitation, he lasers the place up in search of Huey. Now this is where things get even more terrible, because as Huey is trying to escape, MM is trying to help him out as well, and he does this by turning on the house lights, which blind Homelander temporarily as he is lasering. This is where one of the cast that happens to be playing Maeve is lasered in half, and this is where things just get hectic. Everything is happening everywhere. People are going crazy and are getting killed by accident because of the blades on their ice skates. Victoria tells Sage it is time to go. Homelander flies out of there, and that is when we see Huey is saved by A-Train. He even asks A-Train, why did you do that? A-Train, he's off. Back at the boys' office, we see that Annie, Kamiko and Frenchie, they're having a moment to talk about the terrible day that they've had. Frenchie goes on to talk about his past. Kamiko knows there's something going on with Frenchie and wants to find out more. Frenchie insists that there is nothing going on. Kamiko says to him that he has helped her so many times and she just wants to do the same for him. Now we're at the hospital where Huey is speaking to his mum. She explains to him what happened, why she had to leave, and now that she's explained what was going through her mind at the time, I think he's able to understand her situation a bit better. Back with Butcher, he is speaking to Joe Kessler, who is asking why he didn't give Ryan the cookie, and Butcher tries to explain to him that they don't have to do it that way. They can speak to him because he wants to talk. But Kessler is trying to explain to him that they don't have time for this. They need to get things moving ASAP or else everything will be burnt down. Back at the Vault Tower, we can see that Sage is having a good time relaxing. That is where the Deep comes in to have a word with her about being fired from being the head of the crime analytics team, but we can see that Sage, she just doesn't care. This is where they start to get into it. Yes, Sage and the Deep. This is where we see on the table there is an instrument and it looks like there is blood on it. Ryan is back at home and this is where Homelander questions him about where he has been. He tries to make up a lie, but Homelander, he knows and he can smell Butcher on Ryan. He knows that's exactly where he's been. Ryan tries to explain that Butcher is going through a hard time, but Homelander is like, why do you care about him? For Homelander, he just doesn't understand because Ryan has everything he needs at Vault, but yet for some reason he still is going to see Butcher. For Homelander, it's unacceptable. He thinks that Ryan is ungrateful and he doesn't understand it. And this is where Ryan has to just run away because he can clearly see that his dad is not in a frame of mind to have a conversation like this. Homelander throws an object which smashes the mirror, and that is where he hears that voice speaking to him. That voice that he hears and sees when he is looking in the mirror, saying to him that he needs to go back to his past and try and figure everything out. And that is where the episode ends. There was a lot going on. We can see that Homelander, he is going through at the moment. He is trying to create this new Seven, but we can see that his weak spot is his son Ryan. He doesn't understand why Ryan still needs to speak to Butcher. Butcher nearly poisoned this lad this episode, but his better conscience, the better side of his conscience, told him not to do it and just to let Ryan speak and make him feel comfortable enough to do so. Huey nearly got lasered up this episode. Sage has got a lot of big plans, but we can see that Homelander, he is going to be an issue. He is very petty, as we can see. But how is this going to affect the plan going forward? Is Sage going to be able to still work with him, or is Homelander going to sabotage his own plans? Let's see. I'm going to give this episode 8 boys out of 10. I thought this was a good episode. We're finding out more about what these plans are going to be in the next episodes coming up. Now, they've got big plans for Victoria, but is Victoria really going to be on board? She did not look too pleased when she was hearing these plans, and I feel it for her because she's getting it from Singer, she's getting it from Homelander. What is her place? What is her purpose? Where is her power? So let's see how things end up. But yes, people, that was it for this episode. Another good episode. And make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you are notified when the next episode is up. I will catch you in the next The Boys review. Dunno. Boy. Yes, people, this is your girl Aleisha Lee and welcome back to another episode of Aleisha Lee Reviews. In this episode, we will be reviewing The Boys Season 4, Episode 4, Wisdom of the Ages. Let's get into this.
Hit that subscribe button.
We kick this episode off with Homelander going back home. Now, we saw in the last episode that when he was speaking to his reflection in the mirror, the reflection was saying to him that he needs to go back to where it all began and he needs to go home. This is where we see his home is. He grew up here. We see that when the lift is going up, the security guard is trying to get in touch with Vought as he is instructed to call them, but the line is dead. Everybody is surprised to see Homelander there. Homelander recognizes that there are new faces and there are some familiar faces as well. He instructs Marty to call Barbara, who was one of the people that he knows. This is where they all sit down to have cake. You can tell that everyone is a bit scared. Obviously, this is Homelander. They all know what he is capable of, and they find it a bit strange that he is there. Homelander even makes a comment himself saying that he never thought that he would be back there. We are with Butcher in the shower, and we can see that in his back there are these veins that seem to just be running around, or worms in his back. Something is really going on with Butcher, this compound V cocktail. It is not looking good for him. Now obviously he knows he hasn't got long, but this is where we see Butcher hit his face in the taps and he is on the floor. Becca is there to tell him to get up. He needs to get up and fight. He cannot go out like this. Now we're at the hospital and Huey learns that his dad is not going to have much time because his mum is going to stick to his dad's wishes, and that means pulling the plug. Now Huey, he tries to plead with his mum, but his mum, she lets him know that she's sorry because it's something that has to be done, and she gives the nod to the doctor to proceed. Now we can see Huey is looking at his dad's fluids and it looks like Huey might have an idea. Now we get some news clips. We can see that there's an advert for the Vought Expo that is going to be taking place. We also get to see some info about Gen V. Our students of Godolkin, they have been accused of doing a massacre. Now, if you've watched Gen V, you will know the truth. And let me know if you want me to do reviews on Gen V Season 1. That show is crazy. This is where we get to see Tech Knight speak about the whole truth. But this is where you see they have spun the story and made it out like our Godolkin stars are the criminals. Singer is watching Cameron Coleman's take after he has just mentioned his anti-soup laws that he wants to put in place, and this is where Cameron Coleman says that Singer has shown himself. This is where Annie comes in to see Singer and says, you should hear what they're saying about me. They go on to speak about the bill and how they can work together to ensure that it does happen. Singer asks if she will do this as Starlight, and she says yes, she will even create another suit if she has to. Now we're with Frenchie and Colin, and they are listening to a track that reminds Colin of his dad. This is where Frenchie asks him about his family, and Colin goes on to tell him about the story of how his family sadly passed. Now Frenchie knows this story, yeah, because it was Frenchie that done this. This is where he realizes that Colin was there. Colin was actually hiding underneath his bed, and Colin noticed the killer had scars on his ankles. This is where you see Frenchie just try to cover his ankle because he knows it's him. This is absolutely crazy. Now we're with Starlight at the office. We can see that she is excited and getting ready to share with the team the news. Now, this is where they have to show her what is really going on. Right outside, across the road from their office, Vought is getting ready to set up stage for Firecracker. Imagine that, right across the road, but this is all by design. They know exactly what they're doing. Back at the Vought Tower, we can see that Sage is going through what needs to happen on the social end of this plan. She's got a team of people there who are tasked with making sure that millions of people do not like Starlight. This is where we see the Deep. He is supporting his bae and he's like, dope. When she's going through the plans, oh, look at this guy. So this is where we can also see Ashley. You know, she's slightly impressed, but at the same time disgusted because this girl has literally taken her job. We see that A-Train gets a message and Sage clocks it, and this is where the meeting is adjourned. We see that Black Noir, he tries to speak to Sage and she says no, and this is where the Deep tries to invite her on another meetup. She lets him know that he absolutely repulses her. The Deep is left in absolute shock. His face, he could not believe it because, yeah, just last episode we was, and now you're, Nah. Sage and Firecracker have a brief chat where Sage gives Firecracker some additional ammo. We can see that she's smiling, so I wonder what this information is. And this is where Firecracker lets Sage know that at first she thought she was a bit uppity, but she seems to be alright. This is where Sage lets her know that they are the newbies, so they gotta look out for each other. Now we can see that the live show with Firecracker is fully underway. Vought has given her a whole 6 hours to just dismantle Starlight's reputation. Starlight gets the team to move the kids to a different location so that they don't have to witness all that is going on. This is where we see the boys enter the building. We see Frenchie, MM, and we also see Butcher. This is where MM lets Starlight know that Butcher is back in. This is where Starlight lets it be known that she does not trust Butcher, absolutely not. But MM makes it clear that it's his call and Butcher is in. Butcher asks Annie why is Firecracker so onto her, and she says she doesn't know. He says you're chatting. Yeah, he doesn't believe Annie, but she insists that she does not know what Firecracker's problem with her is. This is where Butcher goes on to ask for 50k. This is where MM says to Butcher, you're not getting 50k. Butcher wants it for ammo and equipment and weapons that they'll need, but he is not going to settle for that at all. Back with Homelander, we can see that all of the employees are enjoying their cake. That is until Homelander invites Frank to play a game. Now, Homelander got this game from Frank. He actually used to play this game whilst Homelander was in the oven. And Homelander goes on to say that when he did score, that is when he would ramp up the heat of the oven. And although Homelander's skin didn't burn, he felt everything. We can see that as Homelander is talking, he is having visions of those terrible moments, and Frank tries to explain to him that he was just doing his job. This is where Homelander tells Frank to get into the oven. Now Frank obviously is hesitant, but Homelander threatens him by saying that he can get in there or he and his family can get in there. The choice is up to him. So Frank reluctantly goes into the oven. Marty tries to shout out to Homelander, but Homelander, he's not interested. Frank tries to apologize to Homelander before he shuts those doors on him, but Homelander says to him, why are you apologizing? You were just doing your job. And Frank, everybody knows what time it is as soon as those doors close. We see Homelander without hesitation. He turns the heat up and poor Frank is gone. We can hear cries from the other employees, probably fearful for what is about to happen to them after just witnessing what happened to Frank. Now we are with Huey and Kimiko. Huey thanks Kimiko for joining him on this meetup. We find out that he is meeting A-Train. Even Kimiko is shocked. A-Train, he wants to know what this is about, and he explains that Sage, she is onto him at the moment. Huey says that he wants Compound V and he wants A-Train to get it for him. A-Train is looking at him like this guy is crazy. Huey explains the situation with his dad, which is the reason why he wants the Compound V. But whilst they're having this conversation, we can see that they are being watched by someone. A-Train says to Huey, if he does this for him, will they be good forever? And Huey says yes. This is where we see A-Train is out of there. But that's when we see that Kimiko and Huey are sprayed with bullets. What is going on? This is where they realize that they are being attacked by Shining Light. They manage to seek refuge in the building, and this is where Kimiko goes into a quick training mode for Huey. Huey got injured as they were running away from the bullets, and this is where they get into it. She manages to find all pieces of equipment that can be used as either shields or weapons. Now we're back at the Vought Live Firecracker Truth Bomb show, and they're giving us songs. Firecracker and The Deep are going in on their duet, enjoying the music. I'm not gonna lie, I did kind of enjoy it. The singing, it wasn't too bad. It was quite nice, quite sweet. But no, they're giving us a full show. Whilst they are performing, we see that MM and Butcher, they are backstage with the trailers, making sure that all security is out. Butcher has to rest for a moment. He is feeling the effects of what his body is going through. It seems like his body is completely shutting down. This is where he asks MM for a favor. he asks to please try and get Ryan away from Homelander and raise him if he cannot do it. This is where we can see Becca. We know that Becca is Butcher's good conscience. That is the part of him that is good, and we can see her behind So this is what Butcher can see. Butcher lets know that he is the best father, he's the best person that he knows, and he feels that he would be best for the job. He accepts the compliment, but he knows that this is a big ask from Butcher. He says to Butcher, what happens if Ryan doesn't want to go? And Butcher says, you gotta make him. Just then, spots Firecracker, and this is where the guys approach. Firecracker recognizes Butcher and as being responsible for killing her friend Splinter. Now, they have some information for Firecracker, and they let her know that they are very privy to her and what she was doing back in the day with an underage boy. Butcher shows her a tweet that is ready to go out. Now, Butcher won't send that tweet if Firecracker gives them all the information on Sage and the master plan. But in a turn of events, Firecracker hits that button herself and she sends the tweet out. And Butcher, they are in shock. Their plan has backfired. But instead of her taking the bait, she sends out the tweet herself and then uses this as an opportunity to get the audience on her side by saying that she made mistakes and now she has been forgiven. It has all backfired on the boys. We can see that Firecracker is getting support from the Pastor Soup Ezekiel as well as the crowd. Annie and her team are watching the shenanigans going on the TV screen. It is just a joke. Firecracker goes on to speak about Starlight, and this is where she mentions that her first save, she actually blinded a woman who is a mother of 3. This was covered up. We can see that Starlight is clearly upset, and he says that she was still young, she was still trying to figure out her powers. This is where we see her run out. and Butcher arrive back, and this is where Frenchie says, whatever you guys tried to do, it looks like it failed. But Butcher lets Frenchie know that it may not have, as he managed to get Firecracker's keys to her trailer. He passes those to Frenchie for Frenchie to get to work. Now we are with A-Train. He is in Homelander's apartment, and this is where we see that he is about to take the Compound V. That is when we see Ashley is also there too, and A-Train is like, what are you doing here? Ashley's like, what are you doing here? This is where A-Train goes to the toilet and sees that there is a floater. He accuses Ashley of doing that, and Ashley says it wasn't her, but let's see what Homelander has to say about it, shall we? But this is where the two realize that they can work together. Back with Homelander and the employees, we can see that everyone is shaken up from what has just happened. He calls Marty over to apologize for Frank and says he was a bit grumpy. Homelander then goes on to tell Marty how he made him feel back in the day as well, making fun out of him. This was just terrible. He puts Marty through an embarrassing time. He can't do it. Obviously he can't do it. You're under all of this pressure. These types of things you do in the privacy of your own privacy. Homelander, he is having a good time. He is laughing at Marty. That is when Homelander decides to laser Marty in the worst place he could possibly do that. Poor Marty is on the floor while we've got Homelander there saying, oh my boots. The disrespect. And that is where we hear a voice say, stop it, John. Yes, this is Barbara. She tells Homelander to put Marty out of his misery, which Homelander happily does. Barbara asks if they could speak in private. She suggests her office, but Homelander has other ideas. Back with Kimiko and Huey, we can see that they are going at it with the Shining Light crew. Kimiko gets blown into pieces by the Shining Light girl she has the beef with, and this is where Huey has to run for cover. Huey, that training that Kimiko gave him, it really worked, boy, because he is able to save himself from one of the crew. As Kimiko heals, I think the girl is really upset with Kimiko because Kimiko played a part in her becoming part of the Shining Light organization. They fought and she ended up with scars on her face due to that fight with Kimiko. As Kimiko and Huey walk away, the girl does scream out to Kimiko, but Kimiko keeps it moving, probably feeling the guilt of her actions bringing this girl into it. Now we are with Frenchie. He is in Firecracker's trailer. He finds some medication that she takes. This is where Frenchie also finds the iPad that Sage gave to Firecracker, and it looks as if Firecracker is just about to drop that information. Annie and the boys are watching as Firecracker discloses that Annie was pregnant 6 months ago but decided not to go ahead with the pregnancy. Now, this leaves Annie absolutely livid. She could not believe that her medical information was out there and now it is in the public domain. Obviously, this is something that is very private to her, but yet Firecracker has this information and has decided to use this against her. This is when we see Annie lose it. She is out of there. He tries to call out to her, but just as he does, he can hear that Frenchie is in a bit of trouble. Yes, Ezekiel is in the trailer, and Frenchie, he tries to make up some sort of excuse that he's Firecracker's biggest fan, but Ezekiel knows this is a lie and he starts to go for it with Frenchie. Now we see Starlight. She has arrived on that stage. Firecracker, before she even gets the chance to really say anything to Annie, Annie gives her the pump, 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 pump. She is going for it. Firecracker is getting it left, right and center. And we all know that Firecracker cannot fight. Back with Frenchie and Ezekiel, he is throwing Frenchie around. We see him throw Frenchie outside, and that is where Butcher shows up. Butcher uses the fire extinguisher to freeze Ezekiel's arm and then smashes it into pieces. Starlight is not letting off on Firecracker. She is giving it to her. We see that Sage is back at the Vault Tower enjoying the show. She's like, how's that for uppity, Firecracker? This is where we see that Annie is not stopping. It looks like she is just about to end Firecracker, where steps in and tells her to look. We see that this has been streaming live all throughout. It did not stop. So everyone has seen Annie, Starlight go at it on Firecracker, basically proving everything that Firecracker has said, when we know that isn't the case. She was taunted, but it does not look good for the optics. Butcher is being strangled by Ezekiel. Becca tells Butcher to get up. He cannot give up now. We hear some screams and then it goes to black. Butcher, he is covered in Ezekiel's blood. What happened? Ezekiel has been shredded to pieces. Even Butcher is shocked. Annie and they find Frenchie on the ground, and that is where Butcher comes out of the trailer. asks him what happened, and that is where Butcher is like, we need to get up out of here. Back with Homelander, he is speaking to Barbara and she is trying to explain to him that these people were employees. What is Homelander trying to get out of scaring these people? He says he understands that they were employees, but what they were doing was wrong. No one stood up to say that things were wrong. She explains what it was like when he was first born and explains why everyone was scared. But this is where Homelander says to her, but you weren't. Barbara says to Homelander that he will never get over his need for admiration. He says to her that she is wrong. He wants to show her why. He calls that room the bad room. Now we're with Frenchie and Colin. Colin is trying to tend to Frenchie's wounds. Frenchie pushes Colin away and says to him, stop being so nice to him. And this is where Frenchie finally admits that he is responsible for Colin's family's demise. Now he does this by showing Colin his ankles, and we know that Colin ain't going to forget those ankles. Colin says to him, it was you. This is where we see Colin goes flip mode squad on Frenchie and he begins to strangle him. Frenchie, he's not trying to fight back either. He wants him to do this, it seems. But this is where Colin stops and he says to Frenchie, do not come near him again. Now we are with Sage and the Deep. Sage called the Deep over and he is confused because 1 minute she's nice to him, the next minute she's completely horrible. But she explains to him a bit more about being the smartest person in the world. She wants him to perform a lobotomy on her. Now, obviously, he is quite disgusted, but until she makes some suggestions about what he will get if he does do this for her, he becomes a very willing participant. participant. That scene was terrible to watch, absolutely despicable, but if Sage likes it, I guess we love it. They begin to start their enjoyment time. Back with the boys, we can see that Victoria Newman is on the TV giving her thoughts on what happened with Starlight and Firecracker. Annie comes back in and Huey consoles her and lets her know that it isn't anyone's business. Annie then gets a call from Singer letting her know that he is no longer able to be affiliated with her after the events that happened at the Firecracker Truth Bomb show. Now we see Huey is meeting A-Train to get the Compound V, and this is where we see that Butcher, he saw and heard everything. He encourages Huey not to do it, and he also explains that he already took Compound V to try and see if he would be cured, and it isn't the case. Huey asks him if he's got any powers. Butcher says no. Again, Butcher encourages Huey to think about it. He can see what's happened with Butcher. Why would he want to put his dad through it? At the hospital, Huey is looking at his dad. We also see Huey takes the Compound V out of his pocket but decides to put it back in. His mum comes into the room and they start to speak, and you can clearly see that Huey is emotional. They have taken the tubes off of his dad, so now it's just a waiting game. Huey goes to get a drink, and when he comes back we can see that there is blue fluid going through the tubes, and this is where we see Huey's mum is looking suspicious. Yes, she has put the Compound V in the fluids. Huey is clearly shocked. He doesn't know what is going on. We can see his dad is shaking and moving, and that is when his dad finally opens his eyes. Now we can see that there is a lift going down. Homelander is in it and he is covered with blood. We then see the devastation that he has left behind him. He has killed everyone except for Barbara, but what he has done, he has locked her in the room with the remains. What kind of world is this? And then we see Homelander is in the lift laughing, and that is where the episode ends. Wow, what an episode that was. What the Sage has set up Firecracker and Starlight in one. She killed two birds with one stone. Firecracker got it, but exposing Starlight like that was cruel. And then we can see that Singer, he doesn't want to be affiliated with Starlight any longer. Homelander going back to his past and just completely destroying even more people. I understand it's a lot of things that he went through there. Absolutely crazy. And leaving Barbara there forever. Wow. Now Butcher, he must have some sort of power, because what happened to Ezekiel? Butcher completely blacked out there, but he knows something is going on with his body. I'm going to give this episode 9 boys out of 10. What is going to happen to Huey's dad now that he has the Compound V? We're going to find out in the next episode. Let me know how many boys out of 10 you would give this episode, and make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave your comments down below. Let me know what you thought about this episode. It was absolutely crazy. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you are notified when the next review is up. Boy, I will catch you in the next The Boys review. Done now. Boy. Yes, people, this is your girl Aleisha Lee, and welcome back to another episode of Aleisha Lee Reviews. In this episode, we will be reviewing The Boys Season 4, Episode 5, Beware of the Jabberwock, my son. Let's get into this.
Hit that subscribe button.
We kick this episode off with the V52 Expo. We have our hosts, The Deep and Cameron Coleman, and we can see in the shadows there is Homelander and Sage. Now, Homelander, he is having flashbacks of everything that he's gone through, especially what happened in the last episode. Now, you would think after doing that he would feel better, but it seems like he's still got these feelings. Sage tries to speak to Homelander, asking him about his trip home, but she can tell that something is clearly wrong. We're at the hospital with Huey, his dad and his mum, and his dad looks great. He looks fine, he feels good, and he can't even believe that he's in hospital for a stroke. He's even like, surely I'd be out of here by now, but he's like, he feels good. We know why he feels good, because he's got that compound V in him. Huey speaks to his mum to ask if she gave him the compound V. She explains that she saw it in his jacket and she gave it to his dad because she thought that's what he wanted to do. Why would he bring it if he didn't want to give it to his dad? And he explains that he did think about it, but then he changed his mind. She explains her reasoning. She did not want him to lose another parent. Now we are with Annie, and you can see that the place has been completely vandalized by Firecracker supporters. Firecracker, she is not stopping. She is on Annie's neck. We learned that she was accused of Ezekiel's murder, but the police have confirmed she had an alibi. Her alibi was her basically beating Firecracker. That was her alibi, so she cannot be responsible for his death. Now we're with Monique and Janine. She has been suspended from school for getting into a fight with a boy, and that boy needs stitches. Now they are getting into it, and that is where tries to explain to Janine that she shouldn't be fighting, but she does a touche on him because she lets him know that's what you do, and this is where Monique has to tell her to go to her room. Now we are with Butcher and Kesla, and Kesla, he is just reading all of the boys. Butcher tries to tell him, listen, they're all decent people. This is where Kesla says, yeah, they are decent people, but we are not decent. Kesla is trying to encourage Butcher to get rid of his team or go solo, I don't know. He is trying to convince Butcher that they are going to have to take a different approach when it comes to taking Homelander down. Back at the office with the boys, we can see everyone is going through it, and he asks Frenchie where is Colin because he hasn't been taking any of her calls. It just seems like he's disappeared. And Frenchie, he makes up some excuse, and he also asks if they've had any disagreements, but Frenchie lets her know that he has gone out of town. Butcher arrives, and even he notices the gloomy faces in the office. This is where Annie mentions that maybe everyone is gloomy, especially her, because everyone is accusing her of Ezekiel's death. Now, this is where questions Butcher, how did he do it? And Butcher says he does not know, he blacked out. Butcher lets the boys know that he does think there is a solution to their problem, and that is a virus that has been created over at Godolphin University, and this is what can take a soup down because the virus latches onto the compound V in their blood. Now, Annie makes a good point, so give this to me and Kamiko and we're gone. And Butcher's like, yeah, I said Butcher, out of order. Butcher lets them know that he did go to the university to get this virus, but Victoria Newman beat him to the post. Butcher suggests that they get that from Victoria. Starlight thinks this is absolutely crazy, but says, do they want it in Victoria's hands or is it best in theirs? And everyone agrees it is best in their hands. Butcher mentions to that they will need one more thing, and that is a presidential pardon. We're back at the B52 Expo, and we can see that there is an exclusive of Firecracker's new film. Also, we see that there is a tribute to Ezekiel. We know that Butcher somehow got rid of him in the last episode. Backstage, we see A-Train and Sage have a conversation. He asks Sage if she is okay, and she says that she is still working hard to try and look for this leak. This is where she says it couldn't have just run out of there. Hint, hint, she knows that it's A-Train. A-Train says, you know, if there's any way that he can help, let him know. And this is where we can see that A-Train, he is fully aware that Sage is onto him. We are with Butcher and They are at the prison to see Stan Edgar. This is why Butcher asks for that presidential pardon, because they want to get Stan Edgar out. They speak to him and let him know that they need the virus from Victoria and They also let him know that Zoe is now a soup. You can see that Stan is surprised. He did not know about this news, and this is where we see that Stan is going to leave with the boys. Stan Edgar leaves that prison looking like a boss. Even Butcher has to compliment him on the swag. We are at the hospital with Huey, his mum, and his dad. His dad is up. They are having a good time talking about things he wants to do, places he wants to go. Huey's mum gives him her engagement ring for when he is ready to propose to Annie. He is caught by surprise by this, and he even mentions that he's not sure that he is ready, but she insists that he takes the ring. Huey goes on to ask his dad why he gave his mum the power of attorney, and his dad explains the story, saying that he didn't want to end up in that kind of position, which is why he would rather his mum make that decision. He knows that Huey wouldn't do that. Stan Edgar takes the boys to one of his homes that he doesn't use, but he knows that Victoria would. This is where the boys discover a place that looks like experiments have been taking place. It looks like the place is now abandoned. This is where they discover broken compound V on the floor. Animals are missing, but there is one animal that is still caged up. It looks like they have been doing experiments on these animals. We can also see that there is a temp V fluid going into one of the animals. Temp V, compound V, and animals. This is not a good mix. Butcher releases the temp V from one of the animals, and feeling sorry for it, he lets it go free. Kimiko even smiles at Butcher, seeing the kind gesture he has just done. Frenchie and MM are talking about the missing items, and this is where they both notice each other's noses, they're bleeding. This is where we see that everyone's nose is bleeding, and before you know it, we see that Victoria is in the building. Stan greets Victoria, and she looks at him with disappointment. She lets him know that it was going to be obvious she knew where he was due to his ankle monitor the moment he left that prison, and she questions why he brought the boys to this lab. He questions her, asking why did she set up a lab here. The two go back and forth until Butcher intervenes, and this is where Stan manages to convince Victoria that she needs to just work with the boys on this. Now we can see the trailer for A-Train's movie, and I've got to say, it's absolutely ridiculous. What is this? Who wants to see this? A-Train goes on to speak about the film, saying it is close to his heart, but we know that is far from the truth. Backstage, we can see that the Deep, he is not feeling Cameron, and that is where they talk about the story Cameron put out about him. Cameron lets him know it's nothing personal, he just needs to make it look balanced, and he offers to retract it, but the Deep tells him it's too late. We then go on to see the Deep talk about his show, and when white people watch it, they're gonna see a version of a drink, and when black people watch it, they're gonna get a different peach cognac version. I'm like, what kind of rubbish is this? You can see A-Train, he is not impressed. Vought needs to stop. We can see Sister Sage give A-Train that look back at the Vought Tower. We are with Homelander, Ryan, and the director, who is giving Ryan and Homelander a big pitch about the next big film. The director is really excited, but Homelander wants to know how Ryan feels about it. Adam is willing to do anything for Ryan to do this film, and this is where Adam mentions that they've spent so much money on production so far, but Homelander, he does not care. He suggests that Adam gives Ryan his Amex card. Homelander then insists that Adam also give Ryan his keys to his car. No. After giving Ryan all of his belongings, this is where Homelander asks him if he wants to do it, and Ryan says no. This is where we see the two leave Adam by himself. Ryan still has the keys and the wallet. No, if you're not doing it, give it back. Homelander speaks to Ryan and lets him know that he has been manipulated in the past, and he realized that he was doing the same thing to Ryan, and that is not what he wants to do. Homelander insists that going forward, things are going to be different. Stan and Victoria are still going back and forth, and they are not happy with each other due to the decisions that they have both made. Stan feels betrayed by Victoria, and Victoria also feels the same. He questions her decision on using his home as a lab, but he assumes that it could only be to find a way to get rid of Homelander. Stan also questions Victoria on her decision on shooting Zoe up with the Compound V, and she lets it be known that she doesn't want her daughter to be ashamed like he was of her. As they are on the hunt for Samir, they notice a barn door open. That is where they go in to find there is a dead body. Now, one of the security guards notices that there seems to be something sticking out of the dead body, and just as he notices that, we see a chicken. Listen, the chicken fly through that man. It is pandemonium. It is going off in the place. The chickens are flying everywhere. They are trying to get away from the crazy V'd up chickens. Wow. We see that Starlight, her powers are not working, and we saw this back at the lab. She tried to use her powers when Victoria came in, but they weren't happening. Everyone is shooting up a chicken while Kimiko is trying to handle one. Stan Edgar looks like he's gonna be chickened up until Victoria pops it, saving him from a fried chicken demise. This is where Butcher is like, bun this, and all of them get out of there. Butcher shouts out to Victoria, you could have let us know that Samir was cooking up Kentucky Fried Massacre. Nah, I was busting up when he said that, yeah. No, but for real though, what is this? What happened? What went wrong? Why are these animals out here V'd up? This is where Victoria baits up the deal that Butcher made with her, and Starlight, she is in disbelief. Butcher lets them know that in the end, he did not go through with the deal anyway. Diffuses the situation by telling everyone to go, and this is where Stan Edgar makes the point that it's a wonder that they've all managed to live this long. I mean, he's kind of got a point. I don't know how they do it either. Now we're at the Vault Tower, and this is where Ashley is speaking to Cameron Coleman. She is not pleased that he has not got certain things in certain places, and this is where he lets her know that their deal is no longer. He needs someone that is dominating, and she isn't. This is all Sage's fault. You see, because she's lost her job now, he feels that she is not the big boss that she once was, and he is no longer interested. Ashley is in complete disbelief. She cannot believe that she has been dumped by Cameron. This is where we see that Sage is speaking to Firecracker. Now, Firecracker is clearly aware that Sage set her up. Firecracker, she is not going to take this lightly, and she lets Sage know this. Back with the crew, we can see that Starlight and Victoria are having a chat. Victoria, she lets Starlight know that she did enjoy the Firecracker beatdown, but she did think it was a little bit much, especially as they've got a reputation to rep. But this is where Starlight is just not really feeling the conversation. Victoria goes on to mention that she noticed that Starlight is having issues with her powers and understanding what she is going through in terms of having to deal with dual identities. We know that this is a sensitive topic for Starlight, so much so she punches Victoria in the face, and you know Victoria, she takes all these blows like a champ. Butcher, tailing behind the crew, he notices that rabbit that he let free. Now, unfortunately, the rabbit appears to have passed away, but there seems to be something coming out of it, and Butcher notices this. He is feeling something. He is realizing, is this the rabbit that I just let go? Or could he be realizing, is this something inside of me? This is where we see him stamp on that and put it out of its misery once and for all. Back at the expo, we see that Tech Knight is now on stage. Ashley and A-Train, they are having a conversation, and this is where A-Train lets Ashley know that he needs her help because Sage is onto him. He admits to Ashley that he is the leak. She is in disbelief, and even more so for A-Train telling her, because now she's an accomplice. A-Train threatens Ashley and says, you either help or he's gonna let the cat out the bag. Back at the hospital, we can see that Huey's dad is missing. His mum thought that he was with Huey, but clearly he was not. This is where they go looking for him, and they find him in a different room. There is a dead person lying on the floor, And this is where they realize that Huey's dad is holding the man's heart. Oh my gosh, Huey is in absolute shock. So is his mum. Huey tries to calm his dad down. Unfortunately, his dad doesn't recognize Huey in that moment. And this is where we see a nurse comes in and screams. She sees everything that is going on. This frightens Huey's dad. And this is where we see he runs off into another room and into another patient. Oh my goodness, the poor guy was just trying to get a date from the nurse, but then he is taken out due to Huey's dad. If you see him just running around, then we see Huey's dad is running away. He is completely in a daze. He doesn't know what is going on. But Huey and his mum managed to catch up to him and they tried to calm him down. Huey's dad doesn't even believe that Huey is his son. He is stuck in the past. And this is where we see that a security guard tries to come in and intervene, but no, Huey's dad takes his heart too. This is where Huey and his mum realize that they have got to run. But Huey's dad, he is livid with Huey's mum and he is going after them. Back at the expo, we can see the Guardians of Godolphin. This is Kate and Sam. Now we know that they were responsible for the madness back in Gen V, but now they are being propelled as superstars. We also see backstage that Cameron and the Deep are still going back and forth, and this is where the Deep threatens to get intimate with Cameron's wife, but this is where Cameron claps back and lets him know that he knows about him and his Ambrosius Bay, so the Deep better leave him alone, else he will put that story out there. Homelander and Ryan are drinking their milkshakes, having a chat, and Ryan wants Homelander to know that he wants to do things that will help people. This is where Ryan notices that Adam's assistant needs a bit of help with Adam. Ryan instructs the assistant to slap Adam, and she does not hesitate, boy. She gives it to him to the point that Adam's getting it this episode. He's been robbed of his keys, he's been robbed of his wallet, and now he's been robbed of his dignity. He is getting slapped up by his assistant. Adam's apology was so weak, but that is what he gets for being a creep. Back with the boys, we see that Stan, he needs a break. The walking is a bit too much, so they are having a moment. This is where we see that Starlight and Frenchie, they are having a heart-to-heart. And Starlight, she encourages Frenchie to speak to someone. He is having a hard time having to deal with all the things on his conscience. This is where the guys are interrupted by a bull. Now we know that this bull is ready for action, and this is a compound V bull. Listen, everyone is shook. I would be shook too. This is where we see out of nowhere V'd up sheep. Oh my gosh, it is absolutely diabolical. These sheep are crazy. They are thirsty for blood. All of them are having to run and seek refuge. We see one of the sheep take out one of the security detail. I don't know where she was jumping up and running up to make it easier for the sheep to shred her to pieces. These guys are running for cover and they manage to get into a shelter. This is where Victoria is reunited with Samir. He was actually one of Stan Edgar's top guys until he got with Victoria, and this is where we find out he is Zoe's dad. He goes on to explain how everything went wrong and also that there is only one dose left. has the idea to inject his dead lab partner with that dose so that they can get rid of the sheep, but Butcher and Victoria, they both agree that that shouldn't happen because the virus is too valuable. There's only one dose of it left. Butcher says they all should just leg it, but Starlight objects, saying that they're not all gonna make it if they try and leg it. But Butcher, you see that he don't care. Butcher, he is the first one that needs to not do this idea because look at him. Everyone is arguing, trying to get their point across, and this is where has to shut it down. He tells everyone about themselves and even shows everyone his arm. He has hives due to the stress that this is causing him. He lets Butcher know, listen, you've got a heart, so we're not going to do it that way. They all watch as Samir injects the last dose of the virus into the dead body. Now we're at the hospital and it is absolute pandemonium going on over there. They are evacuating, getting everybody out. Huey, he is trying to find a cocktail that he can use to subdue his dad. Huey lets his mum know that he is not going to let anything happen to her, but just as he says that, that is where his dad comes in. He is still angry and livid. He is coming straight for Daphne. This is where Huey manages to intervene and reminds his dad of a story when he was younger, of when his dad took him to get a Tech Night doll. But he lets his dad know that he has always been his real hero. Huey's dad is starting to come around and realize that it is Huey. He is confused, he doesn't know what to do, but Huey says he thinks that he does. Back with the boys, we can see that the infected dead body is now outside, ready for the killer sheep to eat. This is where Victoria asks Samir how long will it take for the virus to kick in, and he says that it's been different every time. We see that the killer sheep, they take the bait with no hesitation. That is where they can hear all types of noises coming from the roof. It looks like the roof is about to cave in, but that is where they see one of the barn doors opens, and yes, it is the killer sheep. Run! Butcher says run. It is time for everyone to get out of there. As they are trying to escape, we see that the sheep are coming from everywhere, and that is where they are stopped by one of these sheep that looks to be infected. That sheep is just about to eat them, but no, it is not. The sheep vomit. Oh, yuck. And it even done a little bleh. Nah. We see that these sheep are falling from the sky after being infected. This is where Victoria realizes that Samir is missing. They cannot find him anywhere. Victoria, she is inconsolable. She is upset because where is Samir? We then see Stan Edgar. He will be going back to prison. Now, he speaks to MM and says, you know, it's not very nice to go back on the deal, but MM lets him know that the deal was to get the virus, so if there is no virus, there is no deal. The investigators let Victoria know that they have searched the property for Samir, but unfortunately they have not found him, but what they have found is his leg. Stan Edgar is heading back to prison, but that's when we see his driver. His nose is bleeding and pop! Yes, you know what time it is. Victoria, she needs Stan right now, especially as Samir has just gone missing. So no, Stan will not be going back to prison. It looks like he is going to be with Victoria. Back at the Vault Tower, we can see that everyone is there after the expo. Homelander goes on to mention that they have found the leak, and this is when the Deep brings out Cameron Coleman. Now, you saw A-Train was thinking, oh, my time is up, but no, they bring out Cameron. Cameron is pleading his case. They say that they found evidence on his phone where there were calls to Marvin Milk. Cameron, he doesn't know who that is, but they do not believe him, and this is where we see poor Cameron. He is taken out, and what a way to go by all of them soups. Nah, this is where we see that Ashley was the one that set this up. Now we're at the office. We can see Starlight and Kamiko. They're probably just thinking, what a day. We see Kamiko has messaged Frenchie, but Frenchie, he is not going to see that message because he has handed himself in to the police for the crimes he has committed. At the hospital, they all decide that it is for the best that Huey's dad, they let go now because he may harm other people. Huey's mum even questions Huey, asking how he knows how to do this, and he mentions he's got a friend that specializes in this area. So this is where they all agree and they let him go. Now we're with Butcher and Joe Kessler. They are pulling up to a spot, and when we get inside, we see that there is Samir. Yes, Butcher kidnaps Samir and cut off his leg. Butcher tells Samir that he is going to make more of that virus. We see Butcher look at Joe, and Joe is there smiling, and we go back to Butcher. That is where the episode ends. Butcher has completely lost it. So he's kidnapped Samir, cut off his leg, and is going to force Samir to make the virus. That is not the best way to go about it. I'm not doing nothing for you after you cut off my leg. What? I am going to give this episode 9 boys out of 10. This episode really set pace, and we have not seen anything like it with Compound V Animals. Wow. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you are notified when the next episode is up. Let me know how many boys out of 10 you would give this episode, and leave your comments down below. Let me know what you thought about it. I will catch you in the next The Boys review. Done now, boy. Yes, people, this is your girl Aleisha Lee, and welcome back to another episode of Aleisha Lee Reviews. In this episode, we will be reviewing The Boys, episode 6, Dirty Business. Let's get into this.
Hit that subscribe button.
We kick this episode right where we left off with Butcher and Samir. Now, Samir, he is clearly devastated, and he really does not believe how Butcher can expect him to do this for him after he's just cut off his leg. Samir insists that he's not able to do it. He needs to think about Victoria and Zoe. He knows that both of them are soups as well, and this is where Butcher lets him know he has got a week. Samir lets Butcher know that that is impossible. He's going to need months to do this, but Butcher lets him know that he has got a week, and that is it. Now we are with Huey, his mum, and the squad, and they are paying their respects to Huey's dad. They are on a tour because Huey's dad really enjoyed the film Made in Manhattan, and he actually wanted his ashes to be spread outside of the hotel. A weird request, but Huey and his mum make sure they honour it. Huey's mum is asking if Kamiko's okay because she really is not doing well. Huey explains that Frenchie handed himself in after everything that he has done. Huey's mum is in shock and is like, who are your friends? We see that Kamiko is at the jail waiting to speak to Frenchie. Unfortunately, Frenchie, he is not in the mood for visitors, and he has denied visitation. We are now with Firecracker. We see that she has taken over for Cameron while he is on a sabbatical, but we know he won't be coming back. Turns off the TV because he ain't trying to hear Firecracker, and that's when he gets a phone call from a frantic A-Train. A-Train lets him know that they have killed Cameron Coleman because they thought he was the leak. is really trying to calm his nerves because just before this phone call, he was doing a meditation. We saw from the last episode, the man has hives because of the stress he is going through at the moment. But this is where he says to A-Train, let's calm down, let's talk it through, and let's see how we can work this out together. He then goes on to explain the madness to Huey and Annie. lets them know that Homelander, he is trying to assemble this soup army, and Sage, she was having conversations with Tech Knight. Tech Knight is having an event at his estate, and this is where Starlight says that they could use Butcher's help. They realize that Butcher has been MIA. We know where Butcher has been. He's been chopping up people's legs and kidnapping them. And he says to Huey that maybe he should sit this one out, especially after everything that he's just gone through with his dad. But he says no, he needs to focus on work. This is where Huey asks how are they going to get into this party, and this is where brings up Webweaver. pays Webweaver a visit, and Webweaver, he is an absolute mess. Brings Webweaver his fix. This is where Webweaver just goes past the line, but I guess he is willing to do anything for the boys right about now, because Webweaver asks to do the honors. It is absolutely ridiculous, with Webweaver's web hole even giving a little pop to Ugh, yuck. Huey comes just in time to provide with some hand sanitizer. lets Huey know that Webweaver will be out of it for at least 48 hours. Now we are at Tech Knight's estate and we can see that Homelander, Ryan and some of the 7 are in attendance. We see Homelander put Tech Knight in his place, letting him know that him and Sage only need him for the moment, but he is clearly beneath them. We then see Ashley has arrived, and this is where Sage tells her, didn't she get the message? She is not invited to the big people's table. But Ashley lets her know, I thought you were the smartest person, but no, clearly you're not, because Tech Knight invited her and they go way back. Tech Knight is speaking to Firecracker and A-Train, and this is where Firecracker is trying to find out more about his wealth. He lets her know that this is not from entertainment, this is old money, and that is where he's looking at A-Train because he says that this is old money from when they used to own slaves. Listen, Tech Knight. He goes on to say that they also own prisons, so that is where the money is coming from. I know A-Train wants to give this man a punch, but he just carries on eating his snack. Now we can see the boys are getting ready to enter the building. This is where poor Huey has been tasked to pretend to be Webweaver. That suit must stink. He even says to the guys, please do not laugh at him, but they cannot help themselves. How can he ask them not to laugh? I mean, look at him. Huey is definitely taking one for the team. Thinks it's better this way so that Tech Knight is not suspicious. This man, he has super senses when it comes to smell, touch, taste, and he isn't feeling this at all and fears that Tech Knight might suspect Huey. As well as pretending to be Webweaver, Huey also has to plant bugs around the estate so that they can hear what is going on. Huey is in and straight away he spots the 7 are in the building, but he tries to reassure Huey just to continue on with the mission. This is where Huey bumps into Victoria Newman. He nearly baits himself up because remember, he needs to stay in Webweaver's voice, and this is where Victoria Newman, she cannot deny that smelly Webweaver smell. This is where we see Tech Knight approach and Huey is doing his best to try and be Webweaver. Tech Knight, he's speaking some code about, you know, if all goes well tonight, the gig is yours. Obviously, Huey doesn't know what he is talking about, neither do we, but I'm sure we will find out. Now we see Sage, Homelander and Victoria. Victoria, she is clearly shaken from losing Samir, and this is where Sage can notice this. They go on to discuss the plans. Victoria, she does not want to be there, but Sage lets her know what is going down. Homelander also lets Victoria know that Stan Edgar is out, but obviously we know that she knows. She says to him that Stan, he's not a threat, but Homelander, he's just letting Victoria know that he knows. We see that Huey is getting the full Tech Knight tour. Tech Knight is showing him all around while Huey is making sure he is signaling to the boys what he can see. This is where we see that Tech Knight invites him to the tech cave. Obviously Huey, he's undercover, he is going to accept, but we know this ain't a good idea. Huey's communication is disconnected as he goes down in the elevator to Tech Knight's cave. We meet Elijah. Tech Knight says he has been a father to him since his parents passed, and we also see one of Tech Knight's prisoners in this red spandex. Listen, yeah, I don't know what is going on in this cave, but we need to hurry up and get out of there. Tech Knight, he can sense that Webweaver, Huey, his heart is beating and he can sense that he is nervous, but Huey, trying to remain in character, lets him know that he is good. We are with the Deep and Black Noir at the Vault Tower, and we can see Black Noir. This is our first time seeing the new Black Noir. The Deep even tells him to put his mask back on, but he reminds the Deep that there is no one there because they are not the important ones. The important ones, they're out at the estate while they are left behind. Noir, he is sick of it, and he is even going to go and join a circus where he is able to fully use his powers. Noir can fly. Back with the boys, Marvin is trying to meditate while Annie is losing it. She says that they should not have sent Huey in there, especially after everything that he has been going through. And he cannot bear it any longer, and she decides that they are going in. Back with Butcher, we can see that he is in a bad way. He is throwing up this black substance and it is not looking good for him. He's collapsing on the floor. This is where we see Becca. She is trying to reason with Butcher's conscience. She lets him know that he's not doing okay because he's cutting off innocent people's legs. Becca pleads with Butcher because she says that he's gonna end up swapping one Homelander out for another, i.e. Ryan. Back at the estate, we can see that the guys are in. Instructs them to split up, and this is where we see Victoria. She is having a word with one of the Senate guys and her head explodes. She is so bored, but no, it is just her imagination, but probably that's what she really wanted to do. Victoria speaks to Sage. She is having a hard time having to cozy up to these people, and this is where Sage tells her a story about her grandmother. Sage, she managed to find a cure for her grandmother's cancer, and when she presented it to these people, they did not care. They laughed at her and her grandma passed. Sage, she has these motivations because she knows what it is like to be ignored. She gives Victoria some advice, and this is where the two seem to be on common ground. Firecracker tries to get in on the conversation with Homelander, Victoria and Sage, but Sage lets her know that this is not a conversation for her. They are questioning where their host Tech Knight is as we see Elijah take a cake, and that is when we see the cake is in the tech cave. It is going to be used in this whatever they're about to do. Webweaver, Huey, he is in shock. He doesn't know what is going on right about now, but Tech Knight lets him know that this cake was his request. Elijah begins to strap Tech Knight up and things are just getting crazy. This is where we see Ashley pop in. Yeah, Ashley is here to join the party too. Back with Butcher, we see that he is not in a good way. Joe Kesler comes in to try and speak some words of encouragement to him and tries to find out what Butcher is really on. Kesler wants to know who the real Butcher is. Back at the tech cave, we can see things are steaming up. Ashley is putting in that work on poor Huey. Now we are with Firecracker. She is having a moment. I think she feels a bit out of her depth at the mansion, but this is where we see once she has her moment, she exits to see Starlight. This is when the two get into it. Starlight tries to apologize to her, but she isn't having it. That's when we see Starlight. She sedates Firecracker. Yep, Firecracker is out of there, sleeping, thanks to that injection Annie gave her. Back at the tech cave, things are not looking good for Huey. Ashley has finished her business, yuck, and this is where we see that Tech Knight is starting to question Huey/Webweaver, asking him what the safe word is, and obviously Huey doesn't know. Webweaver, his senses are tingling, he knows that there is something up, and that is where we see he takes off Huey's mask. Before he gets big points with Homelander, he is going to have some fun with Huey by saying he's going to create his own holes, yuck! Huey pleads with Tech Knight, even telling him that he was his favourite soup when he was younger, but Tech Knight, he don't care about all of that. All he cares about is creating new holes in Huey. Now we're with MM and Kimiko. They have linked up in the mansion, and this is where they are on the hunt for Huey. They notice the orchids that Huey mentioned as he was going up to Tech Knight's cave, and this is where they enter the room and they see Sage. Sage, she gets up instantly, trying to speak to Marvin, trying to persuade him to forget about this. All she needs to do is just scream, but MM, he is applying that pressure. She is trying to apply pressure as well, even mentioning MM's daughter Janine. Sage is really trying to push his buttons. This is where she runs to try and hit the alarm, but MM shoots her. At the same time, Kimiko manages to find the book that opens the secret door. Just then, we see that Marvin, he is starting to have issues, and all of a sudden he collapses. I think everything that has been going on plus Sage just put the cherry on top for him. He collapses. Kimiko can feel that there is a pulse, but she has to leave MM so that she can rescue Huey. A-Train notices something funny in his drink, and that is where he sees that it is Kimiko. She shows A-Train everything that's going on with MM and asks him to take him to the hospital. That is when we see Annie comes in just as A-Train and MM leave. Kimiko and Annie make it just in time before Tech Knight is about to cut up Huey. Poor Huey is there, he is afraid, but I know he is happy that they are both there. We then see A-Train drop MM off to the hospital and we see a young boy who notices. The boy smiles at A-Train and A-Train smiles right back. You know that A-Train is feeling real good. This is the first time he has had a real save. Back at the mansion, Homelander is getting ready to speak to their guests and this is where he notices something is wrong with Sage. He asks Sage what is wrong and she tells him brain damage. He can see the hole in her head. Sage is clearly not with it and she is not going to be able to address anyone in this state. The guests begin to ask Homelander questions that you know he does not have the answers for, and this is where Victoria Newman has to step in. Homelander, you can tell that he is livid. He didn't expect for Victoria to come out with this speech, but she has saved them in this moment. Back at the Tech Cave, we can see that Tech Knight, he is now tied up, and this is where Annie and Kimiko start the interrogation. Tech Knight, he is enjoying the interrogation techniques that Kimiko is giving him. We know that that is his type of fun, so it isn't working. That isn't until his hostage in the red spandex, he manages to break free and he goes straight to Tech Knight's computer. He shows the squad that this has all of his banking information and all they need is an eye scan from Tech Knight. You can see on Tech Knight's face, he is not feeling this. You know he loves his money. This is where Huey holds up the laptop to his face and they are in. The squad begin transferring that cash because Tech Knight, he is not trying to tell them the truth. Tech Knight, he is feeling it, but this is where they start transferring those funds. But it is all too much for Tech Knight. He starts delivering the information. Tech Knight starts telling them what they need to know. Sage and Homelander have given him a deal. He goes on to say that Sage and Homelander, they want to use his prisons. Their plan is to start prison camps. The squad are in shock, but that is when they get another shock because they see that Elijah, he is strangling Tech Knight. He tells them to take a step back and he tells him to stop, but no, he explains that he raised Tech Knight from when he was a child and he's basically sick of him. He's sick of hearing his entitledness and his spoiledness. He is tired. For Elijah, the prison camps are the final straw. He's done so much things for Tech Knight, but this, no. Elijah lets them know that he will make Tech Knight's death look like an accident. He tells the squad to get out of there. We're back at the hospital with MM and MM is doing okay. He had a panic attack. The doctor says to him, look at this as a warning from the universe that he needs to slow down. Kimiko is back at the jail trying to see Frenchie, but Frenchie, he still doesn't want to have any visitors. Kimiko lets the prison officer know that she doesn't have anywhere else to go. Back at Vought, Firecracker is letting Homelander know that Tech Knight is dead. Now, she is pinning this on Sage. You know that she's got it out for Sage because of everything that happened with Starlight. Homelander clocks that Firecracker is the one that let Starlight get away. So how does he know he can trust her? Firecracker begins to show some skin and even Homelander's like, I'm not attracted to you. Firecracker's like, no, it's not about that. All of a sudden we just see one on Homelander's face. Yes, it is the milk. That is what that medication is for. She has been taking this medication so that she can provide milk to Homelander. This is proving her loyalty to him. Next minute, we see that Homelander, he has taken the bait and he is enjoying his milk. Back at the office, we can see that the events that have happened are really affecting Huey. Ashley done some horrible and said some terrible things to him. In addition to him having to go through the loss of his dad, he hasn't even really had a chance to really grieve, and Huey has to admit to himself that he is not okay. Annie is there to comfort him. Now we're with Butcher. He is there with Joe Kesler and Samir is trying to explain to him the severity of the situation. He cannot produce what Butcher is asking for because he says that they realized when they were doing it that it would be unstable to make a virus that strong to kill Homelander, it would virtually kill every soup. This is where Becca comes in to remind Butcher. This includes Kimiko, this includes Annie, this includes Ryan. Joe is doing his best to persuade Butcher and try and get him to see that this is the right way they need to do things. Whilst on the other hand, Becca is trying to show him that there must be a different way, there is a better way. Joe calls Becca out of her name, and this is where Butcher pauses and says, "You can see her." This is the reveal. This is where Joe lets Butcher know that he is him. Butcher is confused. He's like, "What do you mean that you're me?" Samir is looking over here like, I am with a madman, because remember, Samir can't see these people. He can only see Butcher, but he can see that Butcher is having a full-blown conversation with himself. Joe reveals that the real Joe Kessler, he's dead. He says that Butcher left him to die, and this is where Butcher is having flashbacks of all these moments where he thought he was speaking to Joe, but really, he was alone. Butcher Kessler lets him know that he killed Ezekiel for him. He is inside of him. Even Becca has to look down because Becca knows it's the truth. They are manifestations of his consciousness, his imagination. Becca represents the good side of Butcher, whilst Joe Kessler represents the bad side. Butcher, he is in complete shock. He can't believe what he is hearing, and that is where the episode ends. Wow, we knew that something was going on with Joe Kessler and Butcher. We knew it because does anyone else see Joe? No. Does anyone else speak to Joe? No. How did Joe know so much about the boys? Have we ever seen him around them? No. So it was inevitable. The same way that we know Becca is gone, it was only a matter of time before Butcher realised. Poor Huey, he is going through it. He has just lost his father. Now he's been in this situation where he nearly lost his life with Tech Knight. Ashley, with her disgusting self, it's too much for Huey. The poor guy, I really hope he is able to have a chance to heal and to grieve. A-Train doing a real save. He didn't have no crowds or audiences there, but he had that smile from that one boy, and I think that was enough for him to do good. I'm going to give this episode 9. 9 boys out of 10. There was a lot of ups and downs. You didn't know what was going to be happening next, and now we know just how sinister Sage and Homelander's plan really is. We've only got 2 more episodes left, so let's see where things take us. Let me know how many boys out of 10 you would give this episode, and make sure you leave your comments down below. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that notification bell so you are notified when the next review is up. Boy, I will catch you in the next The Boys review. Done now. Boy. Yes, people, this is your girl Aleisha Lee, and welcome back to another episode of Aleisha Lee Reviews. In this episode, we will be reviewing the penultimate episode of The Boys, Season 4, Episode 7, The Insider. Let's get into this.
Hit that subscribe button.
We kick this episode off with Ryan. He is filming for a show. It's a puppet show. It's giving like Sesame Street, but I guess Vaught's version of it. And this is where he is speaking to the A-Train puppet. A-Train puppet is encouraging the kids to basically tell on their parents. And this is where Ryan is like, cut. He speaks to the director, and the director lets him know that the script was personally approved by his father, Homelander. Now we're at the Vault Tower. We can see that Ashley, Firecracker, and Homelander are having a meeting. Now, Sage, she comes in. She thought the meeting started at 11, but Firecracker lets her know that they've moved it up earlier. Ashley is speaking about NFTs, and that's when Homelander is like, Ashley, get out. Homelander lets Sage know that there was a leak at Tech Knight. Now, she knows who the leak is, but she is not going to give that information up just yet. But this is where Homelander and Firecracker start to drill in on her. They let her know that they will be finding the leak, i.e. they don't need Sage to help them with finding out who it is. You can see that Firecracker's milk has got Homelander doing the most already. ready. Homelander tells Sage to make sure that the shooter is ready on the 6th. We can see that A-Train was listening in and heard the conversation. Now we are with the Deep. He is with his Octopus Bay Ambrosius and they are having a moment. This is where they are interrupted by a text message from Sage to the Deep. He jumps up without no hesitation and he puts Ambrosius back in her tank. She even says to him that she was meant to be moving location so that she's not in the closet anymore, but no, the Deep, he has not got time for her at the moment. Annie is speaking to her mum, letting her know that she is going to have to leave town for a while. Annie's mum is clearly not happy with this and she also lets her know that people have been gossiping. She also lets the cat out of the bag that Huey kept her Starlight costume and Annie, she can't stand the sight of it. Huey explains that he thought that she might want it in the future, but Annie does not like it. A-Train is surveilling Sage. She is meeting up with someone that they think could be a possible lead. This is where he passes this information on to MM and MM lets the boys know. This is when we see Butcher. He looks terrible. He drops the bomb that Samir has been cooking up the virus for him. You know that everybody is shocked. They are in disbelief and this is when Huey realizes that Butcher cut off his leg. The boys can't believe what they're hearing. Butcher is talking about Soup suicide, but this is where he says he is telling them this because he does not want all of this blood on his hands. And this is where he has come up with an idea that Samir will need some help to create this virus. This is where we see Frenchie. Yes, Frenchie is back and out of jail. Butcher lets the squad know that he had Mallory pull a few strings to get Frenchie out. Back at the Vault Tower, we can see that Ryan is looking at his Christmas gifts and there's one gift in particular that sticks out. He knows that this is from Butcher. It's a picture with Butcher and his mum. Back with the boys, MM lets the squad know that he is going to be falling back. Due to everything that is going on with his health, it is just too much for him at the moment and he even wants to reinstate Butcher as lead of the boys. You know Starlight is not feeling this one bit, but MM is insistent that this is for the best, especially for his health. Monique pays MM a visit and this is where he gives her tickets and money to get gone and go to Belize. He lets her know that it is temporary, but he just needs for her and Janine to be safe. Monique gives Marvin a well-deserved kiss. This guy's been going through it and she says to him that she understands how hard he has been working to provide and protect her and Janine. She even encourages him to go with them because he's done all of this. It must be really serious, so he should come along with them. Ashley is watching the news bulletin that Cameron Coleman, he has passed away. Now, they've spun it that he has passed away from a brain aneurysm due to the flu vaccination, but we know what really happened. Ashley, you can see that she is feeling the guilt from her actions. We all know that she is the one that set Cameron up. A-Train comes to visit, asking where her assistant is, and she lets him know that she fired him. She wanted to get him away from this place. A lot is going on. She is feeling that guilt. A-Train tries to reassure her, but doing that saved her life, but she says she could have done it another way. A-Train lets her know that they know that Cameron was not the leak. Ashley is frantic. She talks about running away, but A-Train, he tries to calm her down and lets her know that both of their lives are in her hands. She needs to hold it down. We are with Butcher, Huey and Annie. They are on a mission looking for that shooter. This is where we see Butcher and Kesler are having another chat. Kesler, he is trying to really get into Butcher's brain and he tries to say to him that he doesn't care that much about Becca's honor because he cheated on Becca. Now, Butcher, he is getting riled up by Kesler and you can see that Kesler is really trying to get on his bad side. The guys are in the apartment looking for the shooter. That is where they come across some Secret Service files, letting them know that this is a plan. There is a stage plan to assassinate Singer. This is where they hear a noise and they go to investigate. They find a woman who is hiding in a cupboard. She lets them know that someone killed her husband and they've held her captive. Just as she is about to get help from Starlight, this is where we see her push Starlight out the way. slash Huey and make a run for it. She is running, and this is where they see some blood. Huey even slips on it, and this is where they realize that this is the shooter, this is the shapeshifter. They run after her, but she is lost in the crowd. And remember, she could be anyone. Now we are with MM, and vroom, we see A-Train is here as well. He noticed that MM was missing at the mission, so he is investigating to find out why. He talks to MM and he's seeing that MM is making plans to go with Monique and Janine, but A-Train has to let him know, no, that is not going to happen because you are the one that convinced me, so you need to stay and fight too. A-Train lets him know about the boy that he saw at the hospital, saying that smile from that boy, it made him feel better than anything he has ever done at Vault. MM lets A-Train know that he has seen the effects of Vault. It killed his grandfather, it killed his father, and now it's starting to kill him. All he has left is his family. This is where A-Train makes a good point. He says that, do you think that Vault, Homelander, this will not follow your family to Belize? Now we are with Frenchie, Samir and Kimiko. Frenchie is dropping some food to Samir, and this is where they are talking about Butcher. Samir lets Frenchie know that Butcher was talking to people that weren't there. Frenchie, you know he's concerned, but he plays it off. Now we are with Homelander. He is leaving a message for Ryan, insisting that he does the show, do it for him. But didn't we just see that you said that Ryan can do what he wants, but now it's do it for... Anyway, this is where we see he is meeting up with Firecracker, and they are about to interrogate Webweaver. Webweaver is nervous. He is webbing up the place. Ugh, yuck. Homelander is trying to ask him questions about Butcher. Now Webweaver, he is scared. He is just going to tell them whatever they want to hear, even if it is at his own detriment. And yes, it is, because this is where Homelander, he rips Webweaver apart. It is absolutely despicable. Firecracker, she is in absolute shock and disbelief. This is your leader, Firecracker. This is what you like. Now we are with Kimiko and Frenchie, and they are having a moment. They are finally having a chance to clear the air. Kimiko lets Frenchie know about her past as well, because he is feeling so guilty about what he's done in the past, but he needs to understand that she's done things in the past as well, and it doesn't take away from what they have. In fact, they can use these experiences to help and support each other going forward. Now we are with the Deep and Ambrosius. She is asking him for her favorite snack, but he is not giving her that. This is where she has to have a word, and she says to him that she knows about Sage. She can sense and feel how he's been treating her. Ambrosius lets him know that Sage does not care about him the way that she does. And the Deep, he tried to deny it, but obviously she can tell that he has been all over Sage, because she can smell her all over him. Ambrosius is letting the Deep know that Sage is just using him and he cannot take it. This is where he smashes her tank. Oh, the love of his life, Octopus Bay? No, the Deep is letting Ambrosius suffocate. She cannot breathe. She needs her water, and the Deep, he is just sitting on the ground, leaving her to die. Ambrosius screams out one more time to Kevin, but he's frozen. He does not do it. You can just see that now there is a shift in the Deep. Homelander is talking to him and he is completely zoned out. He's thinking about everything that just happened. But as he snaps out of it, he lets Homelander know that he is willing to do whatever Homelander says. Now we're with Victoria Newman. She is packing up and getting ready to leave. That is when we see Victoria has got a visitor, and that is Huey. Now remember, at one point these two were actually close. Huey was working for Victoria Newman's team, but obviously a lot has happened since then. This is where he is pleading to her to try and figure it out. They can't just let things end this way. Back at the office, we see that Annie and Butcher have entered the building to be greeted by the Deep, Annie questions him, what the hell is he doing here? And this is where we see that they have been sent here by Homelander to get rid of them. We also see that Black Noir is in the building. The Deep has a few choice words for Annie before they get into it. He throws a blow and this is where the tussle begins. Whilst Annie and the Deep are going for it, we can see that Butcher is trying to get rid of Black Noir, and this is where during battle Black Noir falls asleep. Yes, he is narcoleptic. We saw that in a previous episode. He fell asleep in the meeting. This is a bonus for Butcher because Black Noir, he is looking very tough. Just as Butcher is about to get the big artillery out, no, Black Noir, he's awake and he throws Butcher. This is where we see that things are not looking good for Butcher or Annie. The Deep is just about to end her until... Yes, A-Train comes in to save the day. This is where the Deep and Black Noir realize that A-Train is the leak. And he also notices that Black Noir, yes, he speaks. Black Noir, he is about to end Butcher, but no, that is where we see MM comes in and sprays the flying Black Noir out of there. This is where we see the Deep and A-Train. They are getting ready to go at it. And it's a tag team thing because once A-Train is done with him, we see Annie come in to take over and she gives the Deep good ones. A-Train is looking much better on the boys' team. A-Train goes back for Ashley and tells her now is the time for them to go. Everyone knows that he is the leak, but this is where Ashley, she declines, and A-Train, he's in shock because he thought that that is what she wanted to do. She was the one talking about Florence, but Ashley isn't going to go. Before A-Train goes, she does remind him to remove his chip. Now we are at the pub with Butcher, MM and Annie. They are having a drink after a terrible long day. And this is where Butcher is questioning MM. What is he going to do? Is he going to stay or is he going to go? And MM is sick of Butcher. He heads out. This is where Annie asks Butcher, who is Kesler? Butcher was calling out to Kesler when they were back at the office and they were in trouble. He was calling out to Kesler to do that thing he done when he was with Ezekiel. And Annie wants to know more. During their chat, we see that a fan wants to take a picture with Starlight. Butcher denies everything and he says he doesn't know what Annie is talking about. MM lets Monique know that he is not going to make it. Maybe one day they will be together. He has always prayed for them to be a family again. Now we are at the Vault Tower and we can see that Homelander, he's crying. He can't believe that A-Train was the leak. Firecracker tries to console him and lets him know that A-Train's tracker is out and they can't find his family. This is where we see Sage come in and she is shocked to find out that Webweaver is dead because they thought he was the leak. And she also lets them know that she was aware that A-Train was the leak and he has been the perfect misinformation delivery person that they've had. He has been feeding back all the information that Sage does want Butcher and the team to know. Homelander tells Sage to go. She is in shock because she said that this was all a part of the plan. She thought that Homelander would listen to her. She's lucky that he is not sending her back in a bucket. Before Sage leaves, she lets him know that there is one person that he will never be able to defeat, and good luck without her. Before she left, she did throw her notes that happened to be in a Maeve notebook. Black Noir and the Deep are back from their beatdown from the boys, and this is where Sage walks past them. They ask what's going on and she lets them know that she has been fired. This is where we also discover that Noir has been seeing Sage as well. Sage, girl. The Deep says to Black Noir, you've been lobotomizing her too? And the Black Noir's like, what are you talking about? Oh, see? Ambrosius was right, yeah? And look what you go and do to Octopus Bay for Sage. Now we are back with Samir, Kamiko and Frenchie. Samir thinks that the idea Frenchie had is actually worked and has made the virus work. Frenchie discusses that they will need to test it, and Samir has other ideas of how they are going to test it because he injects Kamiko's leg. This is his opportunity to escape. Thanks to Frenchie's quick thinking, they remove Kamiko's infected leg. Now we see the rest of the squad are here and they are looking at the leg. This is good for the boys because at least they've got some of the virus within that leg that they could possibly extract. Now, while Kamiko was sitting down, all we see was a little baby leg. Oh, Kamiko. We've seen her with baby arm. Now we've seen her with baby leg. This is where the voice of reason, MM, comes in to let them know that they have done so much with little and they're not going to let anything happen to the president. Now we are back with Ryan on the Christmas special show and he is listening to the message his dad sent. You can tell by Ryan's face, he's like, is this man serious? Is he for real? Didn't he just say he's going to listen to me and now this is what he wants me to do? Butcher is watching Ryan's live show whilst at the pub and this is where we can see that Ryan, he's had enough. He tells everyone to stop. This is where Ashley tries to get the director to cut to commercial, but Ryan says no. We can see Ryan then goes on to speak about his mum Becca, and he also mentions Butcher. And you saw Homelander, he flinched when his son mentioned that. Homelander is watching this live too. Butcher says to Kesler, this is why he has faith in the kid. But just as he says that, Butcher collapses. Kesler, he's looking at Butcher like, you think you don't need me? Yes, you do. You're a mess. And that is where someone comes to Butcher's aid. Now we are at home with Annie and Huey, and Annie is wearing her costume. Yeah, she's wearing her Starlight costume, and this is where the two, they start to have some fun time. As Huey is sleeping, Annie goes to the safe and she takes out Huey's laptop. This is where we see, that ain't Annie, that is the switcher, that is the body snatcher, that is not Annie. We can see that Annie is being held captive in some dingy place somewhere. She can see the skin of the fan that asked her for a photograph, and she's having these flashbacks of what really happened. Yes, the shapeshifter is with Huey and he tries to escape from the chains, but those look pretty secure. And remember, she doesn't have her powers at the moment either. And that is where the episode ends. Oh my goodness, it is getting technical. So we've got the shapeshifter now in Huey's house and she is going to remove that evidence. She's going to destroy that evidence that they have. Annie is imprisoned. Butcher, is he going to be okay? He has not got long at all. This is terrible. Poor Kamiko with her infected leg, but at least she's got a new leg growing. I am going to give this episode 10 boys out of 10. I thought this episode from start to finish was on 100. A lot going on. We had that scene with the Deep and Black Noir as well, and them also finding out that they've got more in common. Yes, Sage. This is a crazy episode. Sage getting fired by Homelander as well, and Homelander, you saw how he dealt with Webweaver. Wow. We have got one more episode left. Let me know your thoughts about this episode. How many boys out of 10 would you give it? Don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you are notified when the final episode is up. Boy, I will catch you in the next The Boys review. Dunno. Boy. Yes, people, this is your girl Aleisha Lee and welcome back to another episode of Aleisha Lee Reviews. In this episode, we will be reviewing the final episode of The Boys. This is season 4, episode 8, Assassination Run. Let's get into this.
Hit that subscribe button.
We start the episode off with a news report. We can see that A-Train's film, it has been written off. We can also see that the Senate is getting ready to cast their votes for the anti-soup bill. is putting that pressure on Frenchie. They need that virus ASAP. sends a message to Huey. They need to know as soon as possible who the shooter is. And that is where we see Annie. Well, Shapeshifter Annie. Shapeshifter Annie coming there with some big dress. Even Huey's like, okay, what's going on? And Shapeshifter Annie proposes to Huey. Huey is surprised by this, but this is where he takes the opportunity to propose to Annie. And this is where he gives his mum's engagement ring to her. But he's not giving it to her, he's giving it to Shapeshifter. Shapeshifter Annie realizes that her skin is coming off, and this is where she tells Huey that she is going to go to the shop to get them some drinks to celebrate their proposal. Now we see Butcher is on a hospital bed, and we've got Kesler who is taunting him and telling him, look at him. He needs his help, but Butcher, he doesn't want to use Kesler's help because he knows what comes with that. Kesler lets Butcher know that if he comes over to his side, that he will provide. And Butcher, he tells him to leave him alone, and that is where Mallory comes in to discuss what they need to do about Ryan. Now we are with Homelander, and we can see that his grey hair collection is really growing. As he is tidying up Ryan's things, this is where he finds the picture of Butcher and Becca. Ryan is home and he knows something is wrong. He comes in and he can see that Homelander has completely butchered the place. We can see that American flag is burning behind Homelander, and I think this is a symbolism of what Homelander is about to do to this country. Homelander, he can't even contain his anger with Ryan. He tells Ryan to come here now, and he also lets Ryan know that Butcher will never be his dad. Homelander is his father. Ryan, he cannot take it. He leaves while Homelander is shouting out his name. Now we are back with the Shapeshifter, who has come back to get a refill from Annie. Now it seems that the Shapeshifter only for a certain period of time can remain as that person unless they replenish and refresh, and that is what they're doing now. They have a discussion with Annie and they are just really taunting her, making her feel even smaller than she already does, mentioning what they have been doing with Huey and also that Huey proposed. The Shapeshifter also flaunts the engagement ring, so you know this is just driving Annie even more up the wall. Now we see Butcher is at the hospital on the phone to Huey. Now he tells Huey to tell the boys that he is sorry, but he doesn't say what for, and we can see that there is tears in Butcher's eyes. Now we see Homelander. He is at the news studio getting ready for another truth bomb with Firecracker's show. Now I love that scene, the way they showed Butcher and then they went to Homelander, showing that these two are probably more similar to each other than they want to realize. Everyone is tuned in to the live show to see Victoria, Homelander and Firecracker speak, and this is where Homelander, he exposes Victoria. All we see is this guy laser her, so everybody knows now that Victoria is a soup. After being exposed on live national TV, Victoria says to Homelander, what is he doing? And she also mentions Sage, but this is where Homelander lets her know that Sage is no longer about. This is where Victoria, she tells him he's going to have to end up arresting half of his staff and half the country. This gives Homelander an idea, because you know that Homelander did not think about this. He tells Ashley he wants a list of everyone, all of the employees that know so much information about Vought. Gets on the phone to Huey to leak the information that they have, but this is where Huey discovers it is all gone. Now we are back at the hospital with Butcher, and he has texted Ryan and Ryan has come to visit him. This is where Ryan sees Mallory and they are starting to speak. She is trying to convince him to stay with them. Now Ryan, he lets them know that he actually does like some aspects of Vought. This is where we can see Joe Kesler saying to Butcher, see, you're gonna have to put some restraint on this lad. Ryan sees that there is a game of Connect 4 and he offers Butcher a game. Back at the Vought Tower, we can see that the Seven are getting ready for a meeting. We see that Firecracker is pouring Homelander's milk. Ashley has passed the list to him of all the names of the employees. This is where we see that Firecracker, she is not looking very well. I think the medication that she is taking for this milk production service is not doing her any good, but she is willing to do whatever it takes to keep Homelander happy. Homelander lets the Deep and Black Noir know the plans that Singer will be dead by the end of the day and Newman will be sworn in. This is where we can see Firecracker is coughing away, and the way Homelander tells her to move. Yeah, he only wants you for your milk. Nothing else at all. Homelander instructs the Deep and Black Noir to get rid of all of the employees on the list by the end of today. The Deep makes a point that shouldn't Ashley be on this list as she knows the most, and Homelander agrees. He asks for her surname, but Ashley, she is listening in, and this is where she runs off for her life. Ashley runs straight into Homelander's apartment looking for that compound V, and this is where we see Ashley injects herself with the compound V, and it starts to take effect straight away. We can see that her wig has fallen off, and remember, Ashley is losing hair from the stress that she has had, but we can see that the compound V is going straight to her brain. She is screaming, and we don't know what is going to happen to Ashley. I really hope she is okay. Now we are underground. Singer is hiding out. This is where we can see that the boys are there, and remember, the Shifter is there too. The Shifter even speaks to MM asking, could the Shifter be in here? Knowing full well that they are the Shifter, and MM says to them, the Shifter could be anywhere. They need to keep eyes and ears out. This is when Huey realizes that Annie is the Shifter, all because of what she said. That was the same thing that the Shifter said back when they found them at the apartment. We can see that the real Annie, she has managed to remove her hand from the shackles. It looked very, very painful, but she is determined to make sure her people are okay. Back at the underground bunker, we can see that Huey is letting MM know what is going on. Just as he manages to tell him, the shapeshifter comes back, and she can sense that something is going on because both of them are acting suspicious. This is where it all kicks off. The shapeshifter pushes MM, and this is where they need to try and get Singer to safety. If you saw the Budov that the shapeshifter gave one of the security details, Kamiko manages to push Singer into the secure tunnel with the shapeshifter following. Now they get into it. Kamiko and the shapeshifter are going at it, and whilst they are, we can see that Huey and MM are trying to get Singer to the secure location. This is where we see that Kamiko, she is taken out by the shapeshifter. Hoy, it is not looking good. Now we see that MM is desperately trying to get the security code in, and this is where we see the shapeshifter is ready to attack. Unfortunately for the shapeshifter, this is where we see Annie, the real Annie, comes in to save the day. She tells Huey to go, and this is where we see Annie versus Annie. She takes out the shapeshifter, letting them know who the real Annie is. This is where we see that Kamiko is now healed from her injuries. Victoria lets Homelander know that his assassination attempt on Singer failed, and it's not going to look good for her. Homelander insists that no matter what, she is going to be the president. Victoria wants to know where Sage is. Hopefully she can get them out of this mess, but that does not impress Homelander one bit, and he lets her know that he will get rid of Singer himself if he has to. You can tell that Victoria feels defeated and alone. Who wants to be partnered up with Homelander? Now we are back with the boys. We can see that MM is tending to Annie's wounds. Huey arrives, and MM gives him that good luck tap because he is going to need it. But this is where Annie lets her feelings be known about the shapeshifter, and she feels that Huey should have known and realized, but Huey tries to say that, you know, she looked exactly like you. And I think we need to be a bit easy on Huey now, especially after everything that he has been through. Huey's been through quite a bit this season. Anyway, Annie, she does eventually forgive him, but he needs to make sure that he is all good in that department because she knows that they done it quite a few times. Now we can see Victoria has called Huey. She has no one else to turn to. Huey lets her know that he's not sure if he can trust her, but she lets him know he is the only person that she can turn to at the moment, and she even trusts him with Zoe just to show how serious she is. Back at the Vault Tower, we can see that the madness is going on. We have got Firecracker, the Deep, and Black Noir getting rid of all of the Vault employees. Firecracker, she is having difficulty. She can't even run at the moment. She has to use her weapon, and this is where we see one of the guys running, and they run straight into the Deep. We know what the Deep is about, and the Deep, he has found this newfound anger, and he is taking it out on these employees. They are looking for Ashley, and this is when Black Noir, he says, yeah, he's just killed Ashley, but no, that is the wrong Ashley. The Deep says she's not even on the list. But we know the Ashley they are looking for has just taken the Compound V. The boys come up with a plan to get Victoria there and get the job done. We can see that Frenchie and Kamiko finally decide to make things work. We have seen them for seasons not profess their love for each other, and it's so nice to finally see that they are going to take each other serious. Now we are back with Butcher, Ryan and Mallory. I'm sorry, Mallory was doing way too much. Butcher was just about to get through to him, but this is where we see Ryan. He is not having it. He is not going to let anyone manipulate him, and he takes Mallory out. This is where Butcher is realizing that it might be too late for Ryan. That look back that he gave Butcher, whoa. Ryan leaves, and that is where Butcher, he can see that there is no hope for Mallory. He turns around and Joe Kessler is looking at him. Back with the boys, we can see that they are preparing for Victoria Newman's arrival. Frenchie has that dose of the virus, and we've got Kamiko letting Annie know that her and Frenchie have shared a kiss. Victoria lets the boys know that she is going to help them take down Vault and Homelander in exchange for them looking out for her now. But this is where the deal is interrupted by Butcher. We see Butcher come in, and Huey is trying to speak to him, but he pushes Huey out of the way. This is where we see that Butcher, he has eyes set for Victoria. Everyone is shocked to see what happens. Out of nowhere, we see that all of these legs, these weights, I don't know what they were, but they came out of Butcher's chest. This must be how Ezekiel was taken out. He uses his tentacle thingies to stop Kamiko and Annie from trying anything. Even Zoe, Victoria's daughter, she tries to come at Butcher, but he licks her with one of those things before he picks up Victoria, making sure to cover her eyes because we all know about her abilities. This is where Butcher, he literally rips Victoria apart. Everyone is shocked to see this. Everybody is in disbelief. How could Butcher do this? Butcher takes the last dose of the virus away from Frenchie. Frenchie even reminds him that he also has Compound V, i.e., it will take him out as well. You can see Butcher, he doesn't care. He takes it. He tells all the boys that they need to get out of there. We know that things are going to get very, very sticky now. Huey is in complete disbelief, having to look at Victoria's lifeless body. Now we are with Homelander. We can see that Sage is there too. Homelander is surprised to see her after everything that he put her through, but this is where she lets him know that everything is gone quite to plan, even though there were a few things that she did have to keep to herself, and there were a few diversions on the way, but essentially, no, they are where they need to be. She passes the phone to Homelander, who is speaking to that Senate guy, who is happy to pledge his allegiance to Homelander and essentially become the puppy president that Homelander wanted Victoria Newman to be. Sage tells Homelander to buckle up for phase 2. This is just phase 1. Look at how much mess Sage has caused. Can you imagine what is going to happen at stage 2? Now we can see the new president, and we can see Homelander. He is ready to take over. this is where we also see shots of the boys. They are getting ready to make their escape. We see that Starlight, she has gained her powers back. We see that Kamiko and Frenchie, they are on their way, and so is MM. He is on his way to Belize. Unfortunately, we see that Zoe, she is on her way to Red River home. Things are not going to be as happy as we would like. We see that Frenchie and Kamiko, they are captured by Sam and Kate. And yes, Kamiko speaks. We hear Kamiko say no as they are taking Frenchie away. MM is captured by Love Sausage and some CIA agents. We see Huey is captured as well. One of the soups from the previous episode when they were back at that facility, she is there ready to take Starlight out, but Huey gives Starlight the nod and Starlight flies out of there. We then see Butcher. He is on his way with that last virus. He is on his way to find and kill Homelander. We then see that there is a post-credit scene, and this is Homelander discovering Soldier Boy. Yes, Soldier Boy is still here. We can see that Homelander is clearly shocked by this revelation, and that is where the episode and this season ends. Wow, what a season that was. That was crazy. This is setting us up really, really nicely for the final season of The Boys. Season 5 will be the final season. So this has set things up perfectly. The boys, they were really struggling this season, but they still managed to get through, but they didn't, because in the end, we can see that Homelander still came out on top. So how are things going to change? They know what they are dealing with, but right now it looks like they are all going to be imprisoned. How are they going to get out? What is going to happen? I don't know. Butcher, we can see that he is completely gone, just like Ryan. Ryan is gone. Ryan, he killed Mallory in this episode, and it seems that Ryan, he is racking up the bodies, and it seems that he doesn't have that remorse anymore. He is spending too much time with his dad, Homelander. Homelander, he is happy that this plan is now really taking effect. We can see that he's got his president puppy. He is going to be running things, not that president. Sage, we can see that she might actually be more of a problem than Homelander. Homelander, he is silly. He doesn't have the smarts, whereas Sage does. And it seems like she is causing a lot of problems for the boys, for everyone, for the world in general. What is going to happen in season 5? I cannot wait. I am going to give this episode 10. 10 boys out of 10. What a way to end the season. And like I said, it is just getting us ready for season 5, which will be the final season of The Boys. I'll give my honest opinion. I think that this season, it was a bit more toned down than previous seasons, but I think they wanted to push the story along, so there was more focus on the story developing, just so that we can be set up for everything that is going to happen in the final season. And I know that they are going to go out with a bang. Let me know your thoughts on this episode. Leave your comments down below. Let me know what you thought about this episode and what you thought about this season. Also, let me know what you think is going to happen in the final season of The Boys. Let us know your predictions and what you think is going to happen. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you are notified when the next videos are up. Thank you for watching, liking, enjoying. Thank you. And I will catch you in the next review. Don't know, boy.
People don't know. I just want to